start recording this webinar so that way, in case there's a few of you have to jump off early, that you will have the replay and everything. So let's get rocking here. So make sure you have a pen and paper. We're going to share some wisdom tonight, a couple of gold nuggets you can always write down. I'm a big believer in having pen and paper and just constantly writing down ideas. So I always have a tablet of paper, at my desk, at my nightstand. So anyways, I share this slide with you here. This is my wife, Ty, and she's my why I'm doing this. So I always like to keep it very personable and just want you guys to know, a little bit about me and who I'm about, so and who I am. So this is us on our anniversary trip just this past summer in Destin, Florida. So just wanted to share that with you. And then Keliko, my man Keliko in Charlotte, North Carolina. I'm going to be bringing him on here in the next 10 or 15 minutes. And you guys know me, when I say 10 or 15 minutes, it might actually be about 20. I'll try not to ramble too much tonight. But let's go ahead and dive in. So I want to help you guys to get unstuck. And for those of you that even aren't unstuck or aren't even really stuck right now, we all need that extra push, that extra momentum. So if you're finding yourself in the position right now where you're like, Steve, I want to have that breakthrough. I want to, maybe I did a deal, but then, my momentum stalled, or, I'm starting to send out letters. I'm starting to talk to sellers, but I want to really get that momentum going. So I just want to kind of hit home a couple of truths for you, and this is definitely important to write down. Realize, especially when you're getting going in your business, like really that first 3 to 6 months, even sometimes that first year, until you're consistently popping off deals, you really want to do everything in your power to build momentum. Momentum is everything, right? Sometimes it's so difficult with just the stresses of life, with just challenges, learning a new skill, getting uncomfortable. It can be difficult to build that momentum, and it seems like a lot of times that we're pressing up against a brick wall, and it's like this thing is just never going to budge, right? And we'll talk about that when we talk with Keliko here in a minute, and he can probably tell you his experience of feeling like that, like, oh my gosh, like I'm doing these calls, I'm sending these letters, but is this really going to work for me? Like, I see success stories online and I've read about it in other courses or books. So I just want to let you know that it's definitely possible, and I want to kind of help hit home these couple of truths for you, that momentum is everything, okay? Pushing that boulder up the hill, it feels so heavy, but once you start to get towards the top and you start hitting over that peak, that's when it becomes a lot more fun, and a lot of fun, really. So if you do this stuff right, these skills truly are going to serve you the rest of your life. So the skills of learning how to negotiate, the skills of learning how to market and brand yourself, and just kind of get your business off the ground. These are skill sets that are going to really serve you in the long run. So if you are willing to pay the price of uncomfortableness, and I don't even think that's a real word, but I still wanted to put it in there. But if you're willing to just get a little bit uncomfortable for a period of time, and it sounds so easy, we read it in motivational books, we read it in different things, and it's just like, okay, yeah, I'm willing to get uncomfortable, Steve, I'm willing to do it. Well, most people say that, but then, a couple of weeks later, it's like, it's hard to keep up that motivation. So I just want to reiterate to you that if you're willing to kind of do the difficult thing, if you're willing to stay consistent and get uncomfortable for a period of a couple weeks, a couple months, and really stay consistent on that, it's much better to pay the price now than to pay the price later. All these systems out there that are promising something different. We live in that microwave culture, that microwave mentality, right? And we all want results quickly, but truthfully, anything that's worthy in life takes discipline, it takes hard work, and I want to help you guys to see that. So why is this really this presentation different? This is going to be not anything that's get rich quick. I hate that stuff. It just sends the wrong message. And again, we live in that culture where it's like, just buy this software, just do X, Y, Z. If it were that easy, everybody would be doing it. The truth is, there's some skills that we have to develop. There's some skills that we have to put in practice, consistently over time. But when you look at it and you zoom out at least about to the 10,000 foot view, it's really not that bad. It's like, okay, it's a period of a couple months of hard work. and you can really set yourself free. So I want to help you to kind of see that. These strategies that we're going to talk about can be used in any market, except, some people ask me, can you wholesale anywhere? Truthfully, you can. It works best when it's in a metropolitan area, or at least a somewhat big city, or the suburbs of that big city. If you're way out in the boondocks, if you're way out in the country, there's just not enough inventory. There's not enough houses for that to really work. So who is this presentation? Who is this webinar specifically for? I want to make sure that we have the right people here tonight that are going to benefit from this. So this is for people who are willing to put in the hard work and provide value to the marketplace. We're not just trying to push one over on somebody and hope that someone sells their house really cheap. We are offering a solution here. It's not going to make sense for 90% of our leads, and our job is to find out the 10% who it does make sense for, and then it becomes very clear. It's a win-win solution for everyone. So if you want to provide value to others, not only just the seller, but also the end buyer, and have a win-win relationship, then this is definitely for you. People who are okay with marketing your business, and it's okay if you're a little hesitant or a little scared. I know I was when I first started, but you must be okay with telling your marketplace, telling your sphere of influence that, hey, you buy houses in your area. Okay. People who have not yet done a deal, or if you've done a couple deals and you're looking to do more, and even if you're more along the upper echelon in expertise, when I'm talking with people in this business who have done a lot of deals, they constantly love getting a second pair of eyes on their deal, a second opinion. They love hearing success stories like this because it re-sparks that passion and desire, which really needs to be sparked daily, because it's not just a one-time thing. You can be motivated today and tomorrow something happens in your life and the motivation is gone and you're like, where does this go? So one practice, and I want you to write this down, one practice that I want you to start developing is just find little ways to motivate yourself daily. It's going to be different for everybody. Sometimes it's, people listening to like Les Brown or somebody like that while they're on the treadmill at the gym. For other people, it's waking up and listening to a sermon in the morning or something. Everybody's different. So find that little thing for you. Start toying around and playing with a couple different ideas that you can do just 10 or 15 minutes a day. That's part of your morning routine that's going to get you fired up and get you motivated, because how you feel in this business, how motivated and the willpower and the desire you have is absolutely everything. And so I just wanted to share that piece of wisdom with you as well. And people who want to do deals consistently, you're going to get a lot of good out of this webinar. Who this is not for, and we touched on this, and I know I sent this in the email, people who are looking for the magic pill, somebody who's wanting to just, desperate to get the dollar and they want it by next week and they just have those kind of unrealistic expectations. This is going to take some hard work. It's not going to take years and years and years to happen, but it does take hard work. People who get jealous of other people's success. And I know, for all of us, if we're really honest, when we see a success story, it's like, man, that must be nice. I wish that could happen for me. And I know I was like that in the beginning, and I'll be the first to admit it. So I just want to put that in perspective that, with this, it's not about bragging, it's not about boasting, but it's like, more inspiration. My goal and intention tonight is really to provide you with some good, valuable information, to bring Keliko on and have him share his story with you and really take a look at these two deals and inspire you and let you know that, if I can do this, if Keliko can do this, there's nothing that's stopping you from doing this. And I just want you to start believing that and really be inspired. So that's the purpose of tonight. You're going to learn some cool stuff along the way. So now that we got kind of those house rules out of the way, I have a question for you. So we're basically through the first month of 2016, right? It's the end of January. So I have two questions for you. Are you making progress on your goals that you set for yourself this year? My second question for you is, can you say with complete confidence that you're going to create a profitable business this year, that you are going to achieve your major goals this year? Well, I hope the answer is yes, but if you're anything like I used to be a couple of years ago, you're going to be feeling some anxiety, some frustration built in there, and that's natural. I just want to let you know that's okay. But it's important to kind of recognize this now in January, as opposed to it being halfway through the year, summertime, we're getting into the holidays, and then all of a sudden it's like, man, another year down. I told myself I was going to do this. I told myself I was going to do that, and it didn't happen again for XYZ reason. The big goals that you set for yourself, a lot of times that excitement wears off rather quickly. So that ties back into that motivation. What's your why? Why are you doing this? What can you do to keep yourself motivated? And one of the answers that I want to help clear up for you is not more information. You should probably think that you need more knowledge, that you need that you're missing this piece of the puzzle. I used to think this, like, man, if I just knew what was inside of this person's brain, if I just knew this or that, I would be successful. If I just had this amount of money in my bank account, I would be successful. A lot of times we don't need more information. We live in that information age, that information culture, and there's more than enough information on YouTube. There's more enough seminars, books, courses, all sorts of stuff out there, right? So you don't need necessarily more information. Chances are, unless you're just absolutely brand new, you already have at least some working knowledge of real estate or wholesaling, or the basics. There's some things that you could be doing, right? So the answer is not more information, it's application. It's applying that knowledge, okay? And that is a key thing. So application, taking action is absolutely everything. Make adjustments, because you have to be taking action to see what's working, what's not working, so you can make adjustments on the fly and really ditch what's not working after a while. So it's, I want to help you see that, taking action is everything. So the key is to get moving first of all, and then to stay moving. The tendency is we move, and then 2 or 3 weeks later we stop moving. So we have to move and keep moving, and that's exactly what Kelikos done, and I want to help you to see that here today. So let's keep rolling here, and I'm realizing that we're getting into about 10 or 15 minutes here, so I want to wrap this up quickly. Let's see here. So let's touch real quick on income producing activities. So what are things that you can focus on that's going to generate you income? Well, the biggest focus is marketing. Generating leads from the courthouse, making phone calls, sending emails, sending letters, asking for referrals, creating different online ads, whether it's Google or YouTube, marketing, telling people that you buy houses, that you and your partners buy houses in your local market. That's absolutely one of the biggest activities you need to be doing, especially that first 30, 60, 90 days. Another income producing activity is making verbal offers, not just driving out to every single solitary property, but making verbal offers, going on appointments, talking with motivated sellers, networking with attorneys, realtors, title companies. These are income producing activities. And I used to be really bad about that. I thought that I was busy, and I thought that I was, I would hear this, like, you have to take action. And I was like, okay, well, I am taking action. I'm going through this course. I'm signing up for this or that, or going to this seminar. I'm taking a lot of action. And really, I was just really kind of busy. But if you looked at my hardcore actions, like what was going to result in revenue or results, it really didn't amount to much until I started tracking it. And I'm going to talk about that in just a second here. So what are non-income producing activities? Checking your email, checking Facebook and other social media, trying to make your website or blog or whatever it is look really pretty, studying courses or training. Although that's extremely important, that stuff can be done in the evenings or on the weekends. We have to produce during the week. We have to take massive action during the week. Watching YouTube videos, even if I used to fool myself to think, I was accomplishing stuff by watching a ton of videos. But what was happening is I found myself overwhelmed because I was accumulating a lot of knowledge, but I wasn't really putting it into practice, because I can tend to be somewhat of a perfectionist, or at least I used to be. It's something that I'm constantly working on. And my mentor told me that, hey, Steve, you just got to get moving, man. Stop worrying about if things are perfect and just get moving. That's the biggest thing. You can, as you get that train rolling, you can start tweaking things along the way. But if you never get rolling, you're just going to get more and more frustrated. So that was a key thing. Like after a while, a light bulb just went off in my head, and I was like, you know what? I gotta get moving with this stuff. Designing business cards, writing letters, in and of themselves, those things feel like you're doing good income producing activities. But at the end of the day, what marketing did you do? How many leads did you produce? How many offers did we make? These are tough questions that, sometimes sound a little harsh, but we want to be honest with ourselves about how much we're really getting done. And when we are, amazing, amazing things happen. So let's just check in really quick here. 2 things that I want you to write down that are some of the most important things that you can be doing in your business is marketing and making offers. You want to be constantly marketing and constantly making offers. So here's a couple tips on how to get unstuck. This stuff is self-explanatory. It's not rocket science, but it's just a great reminder to, when you set aside that certain schedule that you're going to work on your real estate business, to eliminate distractions. No email, no TV, social media off. Like, it's time to get this thing done. And what happens is when we focus like that, we get things done. And that's such a more gratifying feeling, when we start to hear back on offers we've made, when we've made a ton of phone calls and we start getting a lot of voicemails back. So it's that thing I was talking about before, paying the price now. My mentor once told me, he's like, Steve, champions and warriors and winners, they pay the price now so that they don't have to later. And that always kind of stuck with me. And I just wanted to share that with you. And then tracking your daily actions. I'm going to share with you, I don't have time right now, but I'm going to share with you guys my production tracker. And basically, it has every single day of the week, and you can put, however many calls you made, however many emails you made, how many offers you made, how many appointments. So every single week you can see how many actions you're taking. So that way we can't fool ourselves and think we're, really doing a lot of, income producing activities. So if you start filling up that spreadsheet with a ton of numbers, chances are within 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks we're going to be doing some deals. Chances are if there's a lot of zeros on that spreadsheet, it's going to be very, very evident to your business. And when I started tracking my business, the actions I was taking, that's when things really, really took off. So you guys will be able to email me and just say, hey, Steve, can I get a copy of that tracking spreadsheet that you were talking about in the webinar? And I'll make sure to send you a copy of that spreadsheet so that way you can begin to track your actions. So you can email me here at stevehowellonline@gmail.com and get a free copy of that. So, all right. I promise, guys, I just got a couple more slides. We're going to bring Keliko on and get into these deals. I know you guys came tonight to learn how he closed these 2 big deals, and we're not going to leave you hanging, I promise. So this is just important reminder stuff that I want to really teach you in the right way, okay? So asking yourself the right questions, this can be really, really, really powerful. So as we make these goals, as we set aside this schedule, as you start working your business, a powerful question that I like to ask myself is, okay, Steve, now that I have this at stake and I know that this is my why and I have this, plan, what's going to happen if I don't do this? What's going to happen if I fail? What's going to happen if I, excuse my French, but like, what's going to happen if I half-ass it, for too long? A lot of times that ends up hurting people. You're taking time out of your busy evening tonight to be on this webinar, probably time away from your family. And, so I use that question to motivate myself. What's going to happen if I don't make this happen? Your back may be up against the wall financially like mine was when I first started. And it's like, well, if I don't make this happen, it's going to be hard to pay my rent or, put food on the table. So use those questions to motivate yourself to take the action. It takes a lot of willpower. This stuff is not necessarily sexy to talk about. A lot of the gurus kind of skip over it because, it's just not sexy to talk about, but it's important, that motivation. So what can I do to generate X amount of leads this week? So here's another tip that I had when I was kind of coming up as an entrepreneur. My mentor told me to treat this, investing business like a game. He said treat being entrepreneur like a game. So when you start tracking your weekly actions, start setting little goals for yourself. If you make 10 calls a week, this week try to make 15. If you make 3 offers a week, this week try to make 5. And as you start consistently filling out that tracker sheet, it gets to be, you start holding yourself accountable. And it's like, man, Steve, I'm seeing a lot of zeros on here. I need to really, start taking some action. And then once you start filling it out with numbers, you can bump the numbers up and you can start playing little games with yourself. And just constantly asking yourself the question, what can I do to generate 10 more leads this week? What type of marketing can I do? What resources has Steve given me? What can I ask Steve? What type of things can I do to take my business to the next level? And you start asking yourself that enough times, the answers are going to come. How can I re-engineer or design my schedule so that I can focus uninterrupted for 2 hours a day to work on this business? So a lot of times when people are working a part-time job, and I know a lot of you out there have jobs, it's like, how do I find the time to do this business? So you, more than anybody, have to be extremely disciplined and diligent with your time. So you really want to plan out, okay, how can I redesign my schedule? I'm doing this for XYZ reason, to spend more time with my kids, to go on that vacation, to retire my parents, to whatever your why is. And how can I redesign my schedule and shift things around to make sure I have uninterrupted time to focus on my income producing activities? And some of these questions and planning, it feels like it's not important. And a lot of people, including myself in the beginning, did not do this stuff. I'm like, okay, that's all fine and dandy, but I want to just get making money. And I skipped over some of this stuff for a while. And this is what any successful business does, right? They have blueprints, they have plans, they have systems that they follow. And you want to treat this like a real business. And when you start doing that, that's when, man, it just becomes so powerful. So I wanted to share that with you. 2 other questions that you can ask yourself is, who do I know who can help me? A lot of times, and I was like this in the beginning, we think we have to do it all on our own. But chances are, in your network, in your sphere of friends, in your community, people if you constantly are asking, okay, I can't get down to the courthouse because maybe I have to work to get these probate leads, but who do I know who can help me? Oh, I know cousin Johnny's needing a little bit of extra money. Maybe I can pay him like 20 or 30 bucks a week to go down there for an hour and gather these leads. Who do I know that can help me with getting MLS access or whatever it is? So if you just keep asking yourself those right questions, you will tend to start getting some of those answers. And a lot of times it'll come to you in the middle of the night. You'll just wake up and be like, oh, I got it. I know I can do this. I can do X, Y, Z. And then another very, very powerful question is, what can I do to produce more leads? What can I do to improve my marketing? Instead of like, man, I'm just not getting enough leads. I'm not making this happen, and kind of getting down on yourself for, why am I not getting results sooner? Why am I not getting results, right now? That can tend to be very discouraging, right? And yourself is going to tell you why, because you're a failure, because you're no good, because you just can't make this happen, like Steve's talking about. So we want to ask ourselves a little bit different questions. Instead of thinking that negative kind of self-talk that we all do, you can ask yourself, okay, what can I do to produce more leads? What can I do to make 5 more offers? You start asking yourself those right questions, and the right answers tend to come. All right, so wrapping up here, I promise, decide now that you are going to work harder in the next 3 to 6 months than you've ever worked in your entire life, and I promise you, good things will happen. So you have to make that decision that it's like, okay, this is my business, this is my responsibility, this is my time, I'm gonna make this thing happen. And when you make that firm decision, that's when things can start really getting in motion. So I just want you to kind of, if you're feeling it, I want you to make that decision just right now that I'm gonna work my butt off. I'm gonna do this thing. Massive amounts of focused action will get you there, And then if you don't make that decision, if you don't like really truly on your deepest level commit, and you're kind of like dipping your toes in the water, you're trying things, it's going to be very tough, because when those difficult situations and trials that really all of us are going to face the rest of our life, if we're honest, we all, this world is a challenging place to live, and we're all going to have trials, right? So you have to just make a decision now that you're going to fight. You're going to fight for what you believe in. You're going to fight for this stuff. And, if you don't commit to go to just play full out, you're kind of, it's a losing battle. So I just want to help you to see those truths. A truth here, a fundamental truth. I loved when I learned this, and it's absolutely true. I base my entire business around this concept. The amount of money that we make is in direct proportion to the amount of value that we give to the marketplace. And this applies to you as well as a wholesaler. The value that you give to the buyer, the value that you give to the seller. You want to be a person of solutions. You want to be a problem solver. You want to provide value. And when you start thinking along those lines and along those terms, amazing things start to happen. So I want you to start thinking in terms of value. So now, my friends, we get into the good stuff. So that's all I have prepared for you on that end. And we're going to bring Keliko on now. So Keliko, bro, can you hear me?
Yo, what's up? What's going on, Steve?
All right, Keliko.
Everyone hear me?
All right, man. You want to go ahead and hit that share your screen button, and I'm going to change you over to the presenter. There you go. Can everybody see Keliko on the screen here?
Everyone see me? Yeah.
All right, let's check in, everybody. If you can see Keliko, hit a Y in there. And are you guys excited? How did you like that little segment? Was that redundant, or does that stuff make sense? Is that stuff hitting home?
Hey, for any Steve Howe students in here, just tell, I don't have to be the first to say that was a typical Steve Howe presentation right there.
Yeah. All right, we got some good stuff. Makes sense indeed. I like it. All right, Keliko, man. So got a few questions for you here, man. So everybody, this is Keliko. Keliko, you're based out of Charlotte, North Carolina. Is that right?
That's right. Yep.
Beautiful, man. Looking good in the glasses there. I like it. So
appreciate it, brother.
Yeah, man. So when did you realize that you wanted to be an entrepreneur, that you wanted to get into real estate? When did that stuff start kind of coming into your mind there?
Oh, God. Well, trying to make a long story short, I don't want to keep everybody here all night. My senior year of college, I'm about to finish up college, finishing up my last few courses. I'm about to graduate, and I noticed, doing my internship, I have a bachelor's degree in exercise physiology, so I was doing an internship at a college named Gardner-Webb University. I was going to be a strength coach, man, and I did it for about 6 months, and I just wasn't feeling it, man. I just couldn't picture myself like, man, this is going to be my career, dedicating my life, living off this paycheck, man. So, I started trying to find other solutions. I just didn't really know exactly what I wanted to do. Then one night I'm sitting in my dorm room and I look on Facebook, and there's this ad for Rich Dad, and it was a free seminar in Charlotte, some hotel. So I'm like, okay, it's talking about how you can get free, quit your job, become financially free in real estate. So I decided, okay, well, why not? Let's go check it out. So I do, and I had an amazing experience. It was like one of those aha moments, and their sales guy, the guy that was presenting, man, he was probably one of the best sales guys I've ever experienced, man. He sold everybody in that room. There's probably like 30 people in there that came to that event. And they were selling this $300 3-day workshop, and you couldn't get my credit card out of my pocket fast enough. This is what little money I had. I was absolutely dying to hear more about it. So I ended up getting that course. I go to it. It's about 2 months later. learn the basics of real estate, contract assignments, I start learning about rental properties, a whole bunch of different terms and stuff, and it was all right. But at that point, like sitting there at that event, it kind of just dawned on me, like I feel like this is what I was meant to do, and I really wanted to pursue real estate heavily at that point, and then there's obviously more, but at that point, that was probably the point where I realized it was like, yeah, I got to do this. So.
That's awesome, man. I know those. Rich Dad is awesome. I remember reading that book when I was in college, and that definitely a light bulb moment. But it's funny how when something you can hear different things, but when you hear it in a certain way, it's amazing when that light bulb goes off. So, so was real estate kind of your first venture as an entrepreneur, or growing up as a kid or anything? Did you have any was this your first business attempt or?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it was. I tried to do I got in the business mood earlier. Like I tried to start up some like rec leagues and stuff, try to charge people and stuff. It wasn't working out though. But I definitely would say real estate was by far my first and only serious attempt to become an entrepreneur and get in the business, which I had no previous knowledge of before. So.
Oh, okay, cool. So for those of you who are wondering if Keliko had like some background in real estate or anything like that, Keliko, tell us about if you had any experience, and also maybe walk us through what led you from that seminar, about Rich Dad and everything, Rich Dad Poor Dad. For those of you who don't know, it's like a real estate investing seminar. What kind of led into specifically wholesaling, and did you have experience wholesaling, that type of thing?
No, I had absolutely no experience whatsoever. I knew nothing about real estate going into that particular event. All I knew is that I had to do something because, I wasn't going to be working a job for the rest of my life. I told myself that at that event, actually, like my working days are very limited at that point. So. But yeah, as far as when I went to the event, like I said, I learned more about real estate. However, Rich Dad really turned me off. They, we finished on the third day. Got to meet a lot of people. Did some networking and learned some stuff. But at the end of the day, it's more of a sales thing than anything. They're asking for like anywhere from $20,000 to $50,000 for a elite mentorship education, and I'm just shaking my head along with 50% of everyone else in there, like that's not happening. I'm already 71 grand in debt from college, and like you're asking me, oh yeah, go max out your credit card, do everything you can to just get this course. I'm like, yeah, y'all can keep your course. So I mean that's pretty much drove me away from them. And I've heard a lot of bad reviews, a lot of people that actually got into that. It's just it's not as a personal mentorship. It's more of, hey, you just got a coach. And let me just be very honest with that. A coach and a mentor are completely two different things. A mentor is somebody that's going to be there to guide you, to stay up with you at those late night, early mornings, like Steve has. And, a coach is just somebody who, you get to call them maybe twice a week for an hour a piece, and they'll give you advice. So that really turned me off with them. But from there, I came home and I knew I had to do something. And I literally I would lay in my bed when I wasn't working, and I would watch wholesaling videos on YouTube for hours and hours. I was getting obsessed. I was just like trying to learn what I could. And eventually I run across this hot deal wholesaling video, which actually belongs to Steve Howell. And I believe Steve has like 62,000 views on it. It's like amazing. At that time, it only had like 1,000, so I don't know what Steve's been doing since, but he's been doing something good.
I appreciate that, man.
But anyways, I get into watching that video, and good God, I sat there for a good hour and 50 minutes listening to Steve, but I soaked it in. I probably watched it 3 or 4 times afterwards, and there was just something about Steve. Like I had watched 3 or 4 other people that I liked, that I felt like, were legit mentor possibilities, but something about Steve, just the realness of him. I honestly, I felt like, let me reach out to him, and I actually commented on one of his YouTube videos, and that exact same YouTube video, and he responded to me. He's like, yeah, man, send me an email. Let's get information. So kind of from there, and me and Steve started talking, and just really went from there, man.
Awesome, man. Well, I appreciate that. It's funny. I look back at that video now, and it's such a blessing how that video gained some traction. It's got such good feedback. But I look at it and I'm like, man, I'm such a goober on that video. So it's just funny. It's always weird looking at yourself on a video and stuff. But I thank you for the kind words there. So let's get into these two deals. And just before we do that, what is your Keliko? What is your motivating factor? Your why that's really allowed you to kind of push through the trials, the difficulties, the failures, and just keep your head down, man. You've been so persistent with this, and just keep going and just not giving up. I know it's kind of a loaded question, but what would you say there?
Well, my why is, well, for one, I mean, I could say that in multiple facets. One of them being is my determination of, I really want financial freedom. Freedom to me is ultimately, I mean, there's other things, but if I had to give like a one umbrella overall thing, it's freedom, because freedom from the politics of the workplace, from the paycheck, being financially free, being able to live life on your terms and the way that you want to live it, and not have to be dictated by that paycheck, and from the person that signs that paycheck. I want to be the one who writes my own paycheck. At the same time, I want to be able to take care of my family, especially retiring my mom. My mom's had a pretty hard life, so she's definitely somebody that I want to absolutely take care of. And at the same time too, I also want to provide a big, I would say an opportunity, but an education to a lot of the youth that in my community and communities and other places that I'll be, and giving kids an option, and just teaching them, from high school and even in college, and showing people that, the youth, that there's two ways to go about it. All of my friends and the people that I knew in high school, and we were all taught one thing. The way of life was you go to school, go to work, live below your means, save your money, hope to retire with Social Security and a pension, whatever. And that was life, man. I mean, it was painted out in a perfect picture for me. So, but at the same time, there's a whole nother, it's like a whole nother dimension of like entrepreneurship and freedom, and just like stuff that so many people don't know about. And I feel like, a lot of the youth coming up, they deserve to have that knowledge and to have the ability to make a choice of really what they would like to do with their life, man. Because I know so many people, so many friends of mine are just absolutely miserable right now. And I'm just trying to tell them, I'm just like, it's a whole other world over here, man. But the possibilities are endless, and it's just getting that out there to people. So.
Yeah. Well said, man. Absolutely. Well, let's take a look here. I'm gonna switch the slides. So let's talk about McElway, your first big deal, man. This was a nice deal here. So everybody can see the picture of what a wholesale deal looks like. This was a deal in Charlotte, and I'm gonna let Keliko kind of tell the story here. So we're gonna walk through, how he came across this deal, and take a look at the ARV and the repairs and the offer price, and we'll talk about the negotiation and some learning curves and things like that. But so this was 174 McElway. This was a deal that closed just before Christmas time, right, Keliko? It was like a week before Christmas?
Yep. That was a couple weeks before Christmas. But it was the best Christmas present I ever had in my life, Steve. The best Christmas present ever.
So yeah, man, let's walk everybody here, the audience, through how he came across this deal. What type of marketing you were doing, just anything that you think is going to be valuable for people to hear about this. How'd you come across this deal? What type of a deal was it? Was it probate? Was it other type of ad? Or
well, every deal, and even this deal's probate, as Steve is all about probate. So yes, this was definitely a probate deal. As far as probate goes, definitely, you're going to have houses that were built in the 50s, 60s, 70s. Generally, they're going to have a lot of equity in them, which, comes from the fact that there's not any mortgages on them. So this particular house, I came across it. I was actually cold calling the seller, which I won't say her name, even though I know she's probably not watching this, but I had quite a time with her. But so anyways, I mean, I was just sitting in that chair actually right behind me. I told Steve earlier, that's the magic chair. That chair has made me $35,000 up to this point. So that's where I've sat and negotiated. But so anyways, I'm talking with her and the seller, we just kind of clicked on the phone. I was building good rapport with her, which for those of you that don't understand what rapport is like relationship building, obviously getting the seller to like you, and obviously you want to present yourself in a very well and open manner. So, we did all that, and we just kind of proceeded forward. I mean, this particular deal took us almost, it was almost like 2.5 months, Steve. I can't even remember.
Yeah, from start to finish. I think we started talking about it. You sent the lead to me in October. They had kind of an extensive time frame there where they needed, to move out and stuff, and you can tell us about that. The challenges that came up. But yeah, it was. I think we started that in October.
Yeah. Yep, because the house was still in probate, and for anybody else that doesn't understand, with probate, you can't legally close on a property until it's out of probate, apparently here in North Carolina. So, so anyways, Steve, what else we want to get into?
Yeah, so let's talk first about the negotiation process. So let's talk when first, sent the lead over to me and we started running the numbers. Let's take a look here on my screen at the ARV. So let's talk a little bit about the numbers and how you kind of first made the offer, what that price was, and kind of how the relationship went with the seller as far as how she responded to your offer, maybe time frames if you remember, and we'll go from there.
Okay. Well, yeah. So anyways, whenever we finally got the offer price we were going to aim for, which we came in at $200,000 initially. The seller in the first place, obviously the first rule of negotiation, you always want to get the first number from the seller. Normally whoever says the first number loses. But in this situation, the seller did have no idea what she wanted. She was really kind of up in the air with it, kind of wanting us to be that professional to guide her as far as, okay, well, this is, just tell me what you think it's worth. So at that point, I made the offer to her for $200,000. She took it well. She didn't immediately object it, and she just kind of was like, so she needed probably 3-4 days to think about it. And, I call her back, I follow her up, and she's like, well, my sisters, we thought about it, what if we come in, what about 225? And I'm just like, I call Steve back. I'm like, Steve, what are you thinking here? Steve's like, come up to 210. So, we pretty much, we came up to 210. At that point, when I made the counter offer to her, she tried to counter me at 215, and she's like, can we make this a deal right now? And, pretty much me and Steve decided to just put the clamps on it. We held down at 210. And she ended up taking it, so we got under contract officially for 210. And I already hit. The thing is, though, is it might be a little bit different. I know for any of you that are with Steve right now, Steve teaches you to once you get the property under contract to start marketing for buyers. And but in this situation, it was a little bit different because I already had a buyer lined up, a buyer that had already seen the property. They inspected it, and we already knew going in before I even negotiated that they were going to buy it at 235. That's where they needed it at. So, obviously once we got it under a 210, I'm jumping through the roof because I know we got a deal. So,
yeah,
we pretty much signed with the buyer that same day. Literally, I drove, I don't live in Charlotte. I do all my investing in Charlotte, but I live outside in a town called Shelby, North Carolina. it's about an hour out, and I drove straight to Charlotte, man, met with the buyer, acquisition guy, got my earnest money check, and I've never had the biggest smile on my face. I won't forget that day either. That was the best day of my life. You know, and I'm just like, wow, like looking at that earnest money check was only $2,000, and Steve's like, yeah, man, just put that in your name. So, you know, I'm holding that check in my hand, and I'm just like, good God Almighty, dude, like this actually can happen, man. And you know, after that, that's, you know, obviously it took us a while to get to the closing table, but you know, I'm sure we'll get to that point. But yeah, that was pretty much the negotiating.
Okay, awesome, Keliko, man. Yeah, I remember vividly your reaction to the 210 when I know you were wanting to come up. You're like, Steve, let's just come up, man, to 215. And when I was like, Keliko, man, just trust me on this one. Like, let's stay firm at 210, because if we just offered 200, then we come up to 210, and we come up to 215, all of a sudden they're gonna want us to come up to 225. And you know, at that time, I remember the buyer said that they would possibly be interested at 230, 240, 250, but we didn't have a specific. So yeah, I just remember that vividly, man. And then on this specific deal, for those of you who are wondering, like, you know, what Keliko was saying, he had a buyer beforehand. That may be confusing. You know, we'll touch on how Keliko came across this buyer and what type of stuff he's done to reach out to buyers, so that way, you know, you can kind of understand how he went about it. So everything that I'm teaching you, right, you want to apply it to the best of your absolute abilities, but you're going to find little tweaks and little things that you kind of learn along the way. So what my mentor always told me was, you know, Steve, you know, listen and model me as close as possible, but really take what works for you and ditch the rest. So, you know, I say that loosely, but you want to, just like, you know, how Keliko has done things just a little bit differently on the buyer side, and we'll talk about how he found that buyer and kind of dive a little deeper on that in just a second. But let's talk about the numbers on this deal, Keliko. So people can understand. They may be thinking, well, how in the world, like, you know, if the house is worth 380, how did they get it for 210? And what did this house look like on the inside? What were the repairs and, you know, that type of thing? And how many leads did Keliko call? How many offers did he make to finally get one accepted? So let's touch on the repairs, and then we'll talk about, you know, how many calls you made and that type of stuff.
Okay. Yeah, so anyways, with the renovations, like I said, my buyer, which I'll get into them here in a second, but they have what's called acquisitions people, and they actually, I had them go out to the property, and you know, he pretty much, you know, did it. I mean, he's a very experienced contractor with the renovation cost. But with this particular deal, and I just want to state this, I don't think Steve's mentioned it, but 380 for the after repair value, that was just for the house itself. Had, you know, say for example, this particular deal is unique in the fact that the actual, I mean, there's really two scenarios here, because this property was in an area in Charlotte that's the land value is just absolutely skyrocketing. And what's happening in this particular area is developers are coming in and just knocking down houses and building these mansions on these lots. Like literally, like this house was like a 2-1, I think it was like 1,100 square feet, and you know, like I said, for the ARV at that price was 380, but we knew that the real ARV was like 625 or 650. It was something absurd. You know, but the reason we kept with the 380 was the fact that, you know, we knew when I went to go make the offer to the seller, obviously I have to play the numbers to my favor in the negotiation. So we kept it at that and pitched that picture of like, okay, well, you know, we're just going to go in and fix the house up. But as far as the house itself, the house was just, it was old. I mean, it's your typical really old house. It didn't have any foundation, nothing major. The kitchen floor was had some holes in it. You know, kitchen really had to be gutted. But you know, the house, as you can see right there, I mean, it's a little sweet little thing. But that house isn't going to be there here in the next couple months. But yeah, I mean, as far as the renovation cost, honestly, my buyers, they were like, dude, it's unlimited. because of the fact that they're going to tear it down. So who knows how much they're going to spend. I mean, they're going to spend whatever they need to spend. Honestly, there really was no renovation budget for this particular deal right here. So it's, they're going to build a whole new house. It's going to be like I don't know, 442. It's going to be at least 2,200 square feet, and they're going to sell that thing big. They're going to make a nice penny on it, without a doubt.
Oh yeah, and that's awesome. When you first start, you probably didn't know what's like one of the hottest neighborhoods in Charlotte. And for those of you listening, it's something you're not going to learn overnight, but over the course of the next couple months, and this would be something to write down, is to start, when you start, networking and you're talking with other wholesalers, other investors, you just try your very best. And there's no ABC way to do this, but you want to just kind of start paying attention to where are rehabbers buying in my city? Where are landlords buying in my city? What are the hot neighborhoods? And, that's something that we learned about this neighborhood in Charlotte. Just like Keliko said, they're flattening the houses and putting up mansions. And, if you get a house on it, typically I tell, people I talk to, when somebody sends me over a lead and it's a 2-bedroom, 1 house, it's like, well, it could be a deal. We're going to have to be really conservative, because when you're selling a deal to a rehabber or your buyer, a 3-2 or a 3-1 is just much more attractive if it's a 2-1. But again, that just goes to show that it's not always a hard and fast rule. I mean, this was a $25,000 deal for Keliko, and it was a 2-bedroom, 1 house. So, any of the rules that we kind of talk about, it's not like set in stone type thing. Like, this is a perfect example of that. So, if you thought, well, maybe Steve just doesn't like 2 bedrooms at all, we could have missed this deal. But since, Keliko is paying attention to the neighborhood, like, and talking with his buyers and stuff like that, he had that inside knowledge. So I just wanted to touch on that. With this deal, Keliko, before we get into the buyer, what would you say was the most challenging part of this deal? And there's probably many challenging parts because it's the first one that you.
Oh yeah.
So walk us through maybe a couple of the challenges if they come to mind, or if there's one in particular.
Well, this deal being my first, I mean, this was like a huge breakthrough for me. For one, in negotiation. I know Steve mentioned that earlier. Whenever I just want to rehash on that, when she countered at 215, and I'm just like, I have saliva running out my mouth. I'm like, Steve, let's just do this. Let's lock it up. But obviously Steve being the expert here, that was a huge breakthrough, and getting me to understand that I need to stick to my guns when it comes to things. But as far as the big challenge, this particular seller, she was really difficult in a lot of ways. She's a sweet lady, and it's actually 3 sisters, so they're much older. But it was just everything seemed to go wrong. I personally didn't take as much initiative with the title company. I know we had a lot of issues with our attorney office that we were going to close with. Because when we submitted our standard purchase agreement along with the assignment contract, it's like everything was like last minute, and like it was stressful. We're trying to rush, and the attorney was making me have to go sign this document that states an assignment disclosure stating that I have to, the seller understands that our buyers were going to be assigning all the rights to them, and it's not me and Steve, which she already knew that, but, they were giving me a big issue about that. So I had to rush and get that done last minute, but I did. But really it was just honestly seller interaction and really just the management aspect of it from the biggest problems that I had. I just had to really learn the hard way that I have to stay on top of things. I got to make sure that everything's going smooth at the attorney's office, make sure title, everything's working good. At the same time, I'm like the middleman, because I'm having to but I'm having to manage everything from the seller and the buyer. So when one party or the other has an issue, and I'm just like, well, now I got to go fix the whole problem. So that was, I would say probably seller interaction management was probably the most difficult thing for me, but I learned a lot from it. So.
Yeah, I remember having the conversations, with you about the title company, and it's just stuff, honestly, you don't know until you go through it. And it's one of those things why, in the beginning of the presentation when I was talking about, I'm really big about doing things in phases because, for those of you, don't let this part scare you because this is just, I want to be real with you on this webinar. There'll be little challenges that'll pop up. If somebody's just telling you that everything's going to go perfect, they're quite literally just lying to you. It's not going to go perfect, but I bet you if you ask Keliko, looking back, was it relatively simple? I bet you he would say yes. And, all the stuff that we're talking about doesn't matter if you don't have the marketing stuff done right up front. So if you're wondering like, ooh, I need to learn all and be perfect on all this stuff right now, there's just no way to do that. It's impossible. You have to go through it just like Keliko did in order to perfect it. And it only takes 1 or 2 times. Now Keliko knows, how to interact with the title company, and it's truthfully not difficult. It's a simple email just saying, hey, checking in, guys, how things going today? That type of stuff. It's just simple check-ins and little emails and phone calls. And that's what I'm here to help you guys do when you get to that specific phase. So, I just want to touch on that. If you're feeling overwhelmed, if you're feeling like, man, this is above my head, I want to kind of bring it back down to reality for you to let you know that this is possible for you, that if Keliko can do this, if I can do this, it's not rocket science. It's very simple stuff. And so I thought it was important to say that. So let's talk on this deal. I know there's some people that are wondering about the buyer. So let's talk about how did you come across this golden goose of a buyer that you have? What type of things did you do to develop that relationship? Let's talk about that.
Well, like I said, I with my buyers, my particular one that bought this deal, they're called Worth Thrillogy. It's a huge wholesaling brokerage. They go by Smoky Mountain Equity though. And, I came across them. I can't remember. It was just one day after months and months and months of going to the courthouse to get probate leads, which is what Steve's system is all about. You're in there so much, and you ever go to the estate section, that's where all the investors go that are bidding on properties. And, I started meeting people there, and I happened to meet one of the acquisitions guy, which is one of my real good friends, Michael Ware. And he was in there putting a bid in on the property. So, we just kind of started clicking, which at that point, like I already had probably like 100 or so buyers on my buyers list that I had met or networked with or Facebook Connect or something. But, with Michael, we just kind of clicked off and, we started talking more. It took me a while to kind of get him engaged as far as sending him some leads, doing, possibly working together. But finally I did, and, they're a pretty unique buyer in the sense that it's a company that has a lot of capital. I've said this to some people already. I've pretty much, they've got $25 million to spend on property every single month. And, but it's the thing is they have the buying power that a lot of individual investors don't have. At the same time, it's not like they're a hedge fund or one of those companies that has to go through like 10 levels of management to get something done, which I have plenty of those contacts. They only have like 4 or 5 dudes at this particular office, and, whenever I need something done or they give me an answer, it's within a matter of 48 hours. And, I got it ready to go. So with this particular deal, we were already ready to work together. They were super excited about it after they comped the property. So that's when I sent Michael out to see the property, view it, take your pictures, and let me know what you guys, what they were thinking. And that's when, they told me, okay, hey, well, 235, we can do this thing. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
Was that good, Steve? Was that good, man?
Yeah, that was great, man.
Okay.
I appreciate that for sure. So yeah, that is a unique situation with this buyer. But so for those of you who are wondering, like, okay, well, what if I don't have this golden goose buyer? The key is finding an amazing deal. So if Keliko didn't have this buyer and he did the typical strategies to go out and find a buyer, to put out the bandit signs, to mail out those letters, he's still going to be able to find a buyer for a deal like this. When the equity, I mean, it's a no-brainer. So don't make the mistake. I know we're all human, right? Don't make the mistake of thinking, well, Keliko just has some crazy buyer lined up. Maybe he can do that, but I can't do that. That's definitely a mistake. Keliko's out there networking. He's, do it, like you said, reaching out to people on Facebook, just kind of immersing himself. So that's awesome, man. I'm so proud.
Let me say something real quick, Steve. Let me say something.
Yeah.
Well, as far as what, and this is my advice to any of you that are actually trying to wholesale. Like I said, I personally, in my business model, the way that I truly believe with the buyers, it's all about relationship. Literally, like I put the extra effort into getting a legitimate friendship with, these particular buyers at Net Worth Realty. I've also got other people. I've got like my inner circle, but people, when you focus on the relationship aspect of the buyers, it's a whole nother world, because you got people that have resources, like say for example MLS access. Okay, everyone talks about, obviously, if you don't have MLS access, what do you have? You have Zillow, you have Trulia, Realtor.com, whatever. That's your only viable source to pull comps, and most people know that those aren't really legit sources of comps. You need MLS access, and that's one of the big things with working with my buyers is, they're agents as well. They have access, they have resources that I don't have, and I really emphasize on making that relationship a thing, so that way I could be able to work with them, utilize their resources obviously in my favor to be able to help them out. So, when you have buyers, I mean, obviously, there's your typical buyer wholesaler relationship. You're just putting a property out, and when somebody comes and makes you an offer on it, there's not really much of a true connection there. But that's just me personally. I feel like focusing on relationships with the people that are actually going to put money into your pocket is one of the most important things you can do, especially if you haven't done a deal yet and you're looking to really, get to that first deal and make that breakthrough. It's just, put time and effort into building a relationship with, these buyers that you have, and you'll be amazed at what they'll do for you. So I just wanted to say that.
Yeah, well said, Keliko. And I would ditto that with the sellers as well. Relationship is key. Granted, you're probably not gonna, go out to dinner or invite them over to your Christmas party or something, but you want to develop that. You want to listen very, very well when you're on the phone with sellers. You want to develop that human connection, because people do business with people that they know and they like and they trust. So that's just one of the kind of overlooked factors that it needs to have some focus, because when you're calling through your lead sheet, when you're mailing a bunch of letters, it can feel like you're processing through some numbers, but so it might be helpful if you put something up above your computer, that says, how can I serve somebody today, or how can I add value to their life, or you'd be so amazed at just smiling at somebody at the grocery store, laughing at somebody, intently listening to them. Makes all the difference in their life and in their world. There's a lot of people, especially that, going through probate and stuff like that, where you'll talk to them and they'll tell you their whole life story. They just want to talk to somebody. So sometimes just listening and being personable. And I remember on this deal, Keliko, when you were explaining things with the seller and, getting that extra form signed and, driving across town to do some of those things to keep this deal rolling. I think you told me at one point the seller was like, Keliko, I'm doing this because I like you, I trust you, and that's huge.
Yeah, because look, this lady on this particular deal, she had developers knocking on her door, ready to offer them more money than we were prepared to offer. But there was just something about her sisters and that first interaction I had with them, and like Steve just mentioned, the rapport was there. When Michael went and obviously met them, he had a lot of rapport with them as well, and they loved us. And ultimately, that's what it came down to. Was it wasn't about the money really. It was because of the fact that we had such great rapport and they liked us so much. So yeah, like I said, I couldn't emphasize that anymore. This relationships are trump everything. Rapport trumps everything. So
absolutely. Well, just to kind of wrap up on this specific deal, so when I talk about, when you see in my videos and I'm talking about creating a solution, creating a win-win solution for everyone, so to put that in perspective on this specific deal, the seller is, has this house. It's a little two-bedroom house. that basically needs to be knocked down. I mean, somebody could rehab it without knocking it down, but the type of neighborhood and the mansions that they're building up around it, it needed a ton of work. So yeah, she could probably have listed it in the mid 200s or high 200s and maybe taken a couple months to sell. Who knows? But we were able to offer her the 210,000. Yes, we negotiated a little bit, but at the end of the day, her and her sisters were walking away with $210,000 cash. They were able to start the new year. That property was behind them. The buyer who bought this, now Keliko has an amazing relationship with this buyer. They're doing, they were the buyer on our second deal. And I'm sure they're going to be buyers, right in Keliko's, side pocket there for, for many, many, many future deals. And the buyer on this specific deal, if they put $80,000 into the house, they bought it from us for, so they're in it for $315,000, so they make $65,000 profit. If they decide to knock down the house and rebuild a house, I mean, they could make $200,000 or more. So it's the buyer is able to, pay their crews. They're able to put food on the table for their family. The seller's happy. And Keliko, the confidence, the negotiation, the working with the buyer, the standing firm on his numbers, the follow-up with the title company, the closing agent. And, now on a second deal, and I'll let Keliko tell this story here in a little bit, we decided to go with a different closing agent that was able to do things a little bit more swiftly. So just the things that he learned and the confidence and the fact that he just did a $25,000 deal. So that's the definition of a win-win-win. So it makes all the marketing effort, it makes all of that stuff worth it. So what we're going to do here, guys, what I'd like to do is take just a 1 or 2 minute intermission after I ask Keliko this one last question. Then we'll come back after just 1 or 2 minutes. I want to talk quickly, probably a little quicker, about this deal number 2, and then I really want to ask Keliko a couple final questions about that's going to relate to you guys. How you can make this, how you can model this, how you can really go after this, and then finally I want to open it up to Q&A. At the end for a little bit there too. So I'd like to do this by 10 o'clock. So let's go ahead. Let me ask Keliko this first. Man, just so people can understand, what was it like, Keliko, on the day of closing? Describe the feeling from when you started to closing this, what I would call a home run deal, man. I heard the voice, man. I'm sure there were tears in your eyes, but I heard your voice when we talked right after you closed this, man. But just so people, maybe somebody hasn't closed their first deal, just kind of tell us, man, how that felt.
I sounded like a little 13-year-old, didn't I, Steve? Coming down that elevator. But let me tell you that now, if I want to talk about the closing was like every emotion you can have in one day, in a matter of like 2 hours, actually. Because we get there, we're at the closing table. I've got the 3 sisters and the executor, the sellers are in there. And we ended up having an attorney switch because this is, we were supposed to have one particular attorney, and then we had this other guy go in there. And he goes in there, they start signing their docs, and like, I hear them screaming in there, like they're screaming at each other, man. It's like, oh, man. So I had to go in there and like calm the sellers down. Then I had to pull the attorney aside. I'm like, okay, what's up, man? And he's like, don't worry, man, I got you. And at that point, I was like, oh my God. And Steve, I know I'm kind of explaining a little bit more, but I just wanted to state that. But yeah, so anyways, we get the deal done, and I was so worried at first. I'm texting Steve. I'm like, what am I gonna do, man? Like, is she gonna walk out on me like right here because of this argument she was having with him, saying he was rude and stuff. But finally we get it done. The sellers, in that particular situation, she was hot. She just, she's happy it was done, but she was leaving. But once I got the keys and I'm going down the elevator, man, it's like, oh my God, I'm just like, I'm like jumping and like doing everything I would without screaming in that office when nobody was looking at me, man. It was an amazing feeling. I went pretty much right the day that happened, like I'm just like, dude, yeah, it actually happened. And, like I said, I told Steve I was like a little 13-year-old kid, just like squealing on the phone. But it's an amazing feeling, I'm telling you, especially for your first deal, 25,000. Like, not many people get get to experience that, man. But, I promise you, for any of you guys, it took me 7 months to get to this deal. 7 months, of grind, of mailers, of calling, follow up, man. I did everything I could, man, and just for the persistence and that I just knew it was going to happen at some point, and for it to finally happen, I mean, I can't even explain it honestly, other than the fact that like it's a feeling for most of you that you'll remember forever. Absolutely.
Oh man, I love that, man. That's what gets me motivated and fires me up. And you are the definition, Keliko, of persistence, man. I just want to let you know I'm proud of you because you're right. You were grinding hard, and looking back at my own story, we all think, especially when we get hyped up, when we get pumped up, that it's gonna happen. And we tend to overestimate we tend to underestimate the amount of hard work that truly something takes, and we tend to think it's gonna, maybe it's not gonna happen next week, but it's gonna happen next month. And that's the type of stuff in the beginning when I was talking, we have to find ways to keep going, and that's why that stuff is so important, because it's not that the stuff is impossible. It's just, anything, whether it's getting in the best shape of your life, having the best marriage, having the best friendships, it takes effort. It takes, just not giving up. And so when Keliko was just talking about that, man, it absolutely fires me up. And I appreciate you sharing that, Keliko, and just, man, keep doing what you're doing.
Without a doubt.
So let's go ahead and do this, guys. Let's just take about a 1 or 2 minutes, little intermission here. I want to check in, make sure everybody can hear me when I come back, and we'll go quickly through deal number 2, ask Keliko a couple final questions, and then we're going to really open this thing up to Q&A and try to get it all done before 10 o'clock. So does that sound good, guys? All right, we're going to take a quick break here. All right, so I am back. I'll give it a few seconds here for people to come back on. Can you guys hear me okay still? All
I
right.
hear you.
Beautiful, beautiful. Getting some Y's in the chat. Yeah, let's get a couple more Y's in the chat. Make sure everybody can
Yeah,
hear.
let's get this chat going now.
Yeah, let's
Where's
get it.
everybody at? Where's everybody at? Say something.
Beautiful. So, guys, in the chat there, is this stuff making sense? Are you receiving some value tonight? Is this helping? Is the picture kind of solidifying at least a little bit? So let us know if you're getting some value. If this is valuable to you, I would appreciate that. Let us know where you're at in the country. Let's get the chat rocking a little bit here, and we'll get into this next case study. All right, we got people all over. Cool, cool. So let's talk, Keliko, about Oak Ridge. So this it's the funny thing, man, about momentum. I was talking about momentum in the beginning. 7 months of just taking action, and it's kind of funny. I have to laugh. In the beginning, Keliko, I remember so many calls, and I love your spirit, man. Your drive. It's like, hey, Steve, man, I got this idea. Can I market to these leads? Hey, Steve, can I market to those leads? And I just remember those many late night conversations like, yeah, man, that's good. Definitely test that out, but let's focus on probates. So I don't know if you want to share some of those
Yeah.
conversations with people, but that was, I just look back at that and smile, man. It's just,
Yeah, I mean, like, at that moment, obviously, I was probably like, I don't know, 4 or 5 months in, and I'm just like, it's like I've already had like 10 offers rejected, and I'm just thinking to myself, I'm like, what do I got to do? Am I doing something wrong? Is this really working? So it's just like my mind automatically, my instincts are like, okay, well, let's really try to find other niches, see what else can do, what else can work. And that's a hard point, and I think that's a struggle for any new wholesaler. And that's something that I'm going to say with Steve is like, he really helped me to just kind of sit me down. Like, that was a serious conversation, wasn't it, Steve? Like,
yeah, man.
you had to sit me down and just be like, look, we're here to do probate, and that's it, man. And I really had to hear that. And it's just like at that point, I'm like, okay, because I mean, at that time, like, I'm not really in a panic mode, but I'm just like, I'm just getting so like distressed. I'm like, heck, can we make a deal, or can we do something here? So, you just got to really sit down, and whatever you commit to. Obviously, probate is my thing. That's Steve's got me hooked on it. And if there's anything else that you're trying to do, like, just don't cut the noise out. Focus on the probate. It will turn out for you. I promise you that. You just got to keep consistent, and it's going to come. And I mean, it's just persistency is key. And at that time, I mean, I was just kind of like all over the place. But like I said, that's the whole point of having a mentor. Had I not had Steve during that situation, who knows? I probably still wouldn't have had a deal at that point. But it really takes the self-discipline and the needing a mentor, needing somebody to really sit you down and just be like, look. You don't need to be focusing on all that other stuff, and your eye focused on one particular thing, and that's going to pay off for you, and it did. So that's all I got to say about that, Steve. But
Yeah, man, that's awesome. I remember that conversation vividly, and you're right. I mean, that's a point that a lot of people come to, whether it's a couple weeks in or a couple months in. It's that hurdle where it's like, can I really do this? And that's where the people who do succeed in this, they find it within themselves to push through that barrier, to push that envelope. And that's what I'm here for, you guys, is to help you through that. And because I was fortunate enough to have a mentor, I was helped through that. And that's just sometimes what it takes. You can't always do it by yourself, and you need help, and I needed help, and Keliko needed help, and that's what it's all about. So the other conversation I remember with Keliko, we had that conversation about probates, and in the beginning, being distracted and things. And it's just, I was the same way, exact same way. The other one was about follow-up. We had maybe a month after that, we had a deep conversation about, how persistent you have to be with follow-up. And
Oh yeah.
that was another, and if you just want to touch on that, Keliko, I think that,
All right.
in my opinion, that was a light bulb moment, because after we had that conversation, it was like shortly after that, you got that deal that we just did a case study on. It was like, after we had that conversation, it was like game over, like something clicked, and, you realized that, hey, follow-up is, I have to do it. So, yeah, let's talk about that for just a second.
Well, first off, look, there's some people that learn quickly, and obviously I'm still working on that. I'm real hard-headed when it comes to the certain things. And when I first started Steve's program, at least for the first 4 or 5 months, my follow-up game was absolute garbage. I didn't do anything whatsoever with that. I would just mail them, call them one time, and just keep running through the leads. And I was like, I'd get one yes for maybe, 300 leads or something crazy like that. And I just wasn't getting anywhere. I'm like, Steve, I'm not getting any yeses. I'm like, come on, man, what's up? And then that's when he spills all, well, what's your follow-up like? And I'm just like, I didn't want to lie to Steve. I had to be honest with him, and I'm just like, I'm not doing anything. And that was another serious conversation, but Steve stressed that on me, and then all of a sudden I had this spur of motivation, and it's just for 1 week, literally 1 week. I spent every night, I would follow up at least 30 calls, 30, 40 calls every single night. And all of a sudden, I start getting interest. I start getting, oh, yeah, we're interested in selling, or yeah, maybe. But, I had so many more positive interactions with sellers, and I'm like getting a lot of interest that, hey, we want to sell our house. So I'm just thinking to myself, wow, it took me a while to really believe in the power of the follow-up, but after that moment and that week, it's just like it dawned on me, and then ever since, man, I believe in 100% follow-up is key. You're not going to reach a lot of sellers initially off the first phone call or the first mailer, but if you follow up with them, at this point in my business now, I don't care if they get mad at me or not. Now I have to have sellers tell me like they just absolutely don't want to hear from me for me to stop. Like I'm going to continue to follow up like it's like a madman, and it's absolutely paid off. So. Your follow-up game's got to be everything. That's really where the money's made. When you get these deals aren't going to happen right away for the majority of them. A lot of them are going to be deals like McAway, for example. What was it, October we signed on that, Steve? And that deal, that was a lead from back in like May or June or something like that. Like I had that lead for, 3 or 4 months. And, it's just that's how a lot of these probates work. The follow-up is just, when you keep on it, people may not be ready to sell now, but 3 or 4 months from now, they start looking at that house as a big money pit, man, and they're just like, okay, let's talk money. So
absolutely.
But, yep.
That is beautiful. I love it, and that's what it takes. So I couldn't have said it better myself, Keliko. I love it. Let's see. Well, one thing I was going to touch on too on that last deal is slipping my mind, but it was something that was key around the follow. Oh, the reason, if you're wondering, why did this deal take so darn long? This was again an objection. It's not a normal situation. Typically, we're able to close in a week, 2, 3 weeks, usually about 2 or 3 weeks. But this one, we had to add an addendum to the contract for, what was it, Keliko, 45 days?
Yep, 45 days. We got it under contract, I think, what was it, October 22nd? I don't know. Yeah, I think it's October 22nd, and we had a closing date set for December 7th, because not only did we have to wait because it was in probate, but the seller, one of these sisters, there's 3 sisters, okay? One of them was still living in the property, and the executor, she needed time to get the seller out of the property, find her a new apartment, a new place to stay. So, we had to accommodate for that, obviously, to meet her needs. But, yeah, it's 45 days. It was super long, but it was worth it.
Yeah, so I share that key thing there because That again is another skill set learned. So now Coleco knows, okay, just because they're not able to sell right now, we can still get this thing under contract, put a little
Oh
addendum that
yeah.
says, you know, to close on or before December 7th, which at that time was 45 days out. And, we were still able to get it locked down under contract. We were still able to get the earnest money from the buyer, get the buyer locked down with the assignment contract. So everything was done on paper. $2,000 was in Coleco's pocket. And that's another thing I stressed with him on this deal. And it was the very first time we did business. Even though we had a great relationship with the buyer, we still wanted to be firm on the aspect of, to show that the buyer is serious. We always want to get earnest money. And usually we'll just do like $1,000, but because this was such a big deal and and we were locking it up for 45 days, we wanted the buyer to really have some skin in the game. So if you're wondering why, $2,000, earnest money, and I don't want to get too outside of the scope because I want to really dive in deal number 2, but maybe that'll be a focus here in a couple weeks. We'll do a webinar or maybe next month on the buyer side of things and really dive deeper on that type of thing. So
Yeah, I'd be more than happy to talk
yeah,
again.
absolutely. So
Yeah.
so if any of you are wondering about that, I just wanted to kind of shed a couple, a couple things there on that deal. But let's dive into deal number 2. So deal number 2, momentum. Here, so you did your first deal in December. Deal number 2 came just a couple weeks after that. Now you got deals in back-to-back months. Let's talk about Oak Ridge. How did you come across this deal, Keliko? What were the numbers like, and we'll go from there.
Okay, well, anyways, this Oak Ridge was once again another follow-up. This was another lead. I mean, it was a cold call once again. Or not, let me take that back. Actually, this is a pretty unique one because this particular guy responded to one of my mailers, and it was probably, I don't know, probably October, November. So, we start talking and like at that moment, but then he already had another buyer. So I kind of lost track of him. Like I hadn't spoke to him in like 2 or 3 months. And then all of a sudden, it was right before Christmas. And I send him because Steve's like, hey man, you've done your first deal. What you should do is go back and email and just kind of follow up with all the people you made an offer on. And just, see, because if they didn't accept it, which he didn't accept, or I don't think we even made an offer on that, but, I just followed up with him to see if, he just interested in selling the house. And then sure enough, like the next day I get an email like, hey, we'll do it for 85 or something like that. So, but anyways, I came across the deal at that point. He come back to me, so we just kind of clicked off from there and then started getting into the numbers, and that's how pretty much I came across this. It's once again, it's just a follow-up, man. I got this lead originally this was another one that was like in June. So this lead I've had it's been sitting in my database for over 6 months before, it prospered and bloomed as it did. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
Getting to the numbers now, Stu.
Yeah. So, and I don't have the entire story spelled out here, so you can let them know how the original price we contracted. I don't have the repairs on here either.
Yeah, I got all that.
So, but yeah, man, tell us about the numbers, kind of how the negotiation worked, all the numbers, and we'll go from there.
All right. So we came in initially at 70,000. After our buyer, once again, it was the same process as McAway. My buyer had went out, he'd seen the property, and he pretty much came back to me and told me that, he's going to need it for 85. So, me and Steve were like, yeah, let's come in at 70. He didn't take it at first. They weren't buying it. Then, that's when it was a couple months passed, and then it's like, okay, well, he emails me, we'll do it for 85. And then at that point, me and Steve, were just kind of like, the spreads were a lot lower on this one, a lot smaller. We were just kind of in that conservative mindset of let's just make this a 5K deal. Let's lock it up for 80. Let's offer him 80. So then we come in, we offered 80, and we got it under contract. So me and Steve were like, yeah, we got a 5K deal right here, man. So, anyways, at that point, I'm happy. I'm like, yeah, I got my second deal. Well, come to find out, my buyer, Michael, once again, he goes in. He's like, yeah, man, let's get another contractor in there. Let's take a look at it. So we set up that appointment, and they go down, and this particular property had major foundation issues. I mean, like, it was bad. Like, Mike had already knew about it, but it even got worse when he went and seen it. And, he comes back to me. He's like, dude, I don't think we can do it for 85. And I'm just thinking in my head, oh, come on, Mike. Like, don't do this to me now. So anyways, at that point, this is probably like from that point on, it took about 3 to 4 days before we decided to make a move on the seller, because I mean, me and Steve in our gut, and me myself, I knew that, we're probably going to have to renegotiate this thing. And but Michael and them hadn't told us. They haven't got back to me. It took them almost 2 weeks to get a foundation person, a specialist in there to determine how much it was going to cost them. And I think the actual renovation total, like there's $20,000 just in the basement. They hadn't even touched the house yet. So I think it came out to like $75,000-$80,000 for that particular property. So we ended up, me and Steve, we came in, we're like, dude, this is the perfect storm for a renegotiation. We're going to have to come down. We probably could have got it for even less, honestly, I feel like, in this scenario, because the seller was so motivated. I just kept pushing the issue that, look, man, you got a foundation issue. Like, we got to come down. Like, otherwise, no, and I pretty much put it, you're not going to find many people that are going to buy this property with that type of extensive foundation. So he ended up doing it. We got it under for 65, and I told Mike, I'm like, Mike, can we do 75? Because originally he was thinking like 50 or 60, like they were going to have to buy the property at that. And I'm like, look, Mike, I've renegotiated one time. It's at 65. We were originally going to sell it to you for 85. I'm giving you a 10 grand discount. I'm making 10 grand. Let's just call this a day. Everyone go home happy. And, they had to think about it for the day, my buyers. But, they told me that because it was me and, once again, the relationship, the numbers didn't really the numbers weren't really good for them at this stage. If they're buying it for 75, they're about to put 70, 75, 80 into it. Like, that leaves them a very small return, if any. Like, they're going to be lucky to break even. But, they've seen some potential there, just enough, but to say that, hey, because it's you, we want to do this deal for you, that they ended up signing, and we did it, man. And like I said, that's once again where the relationship and the rapport came in, and that's how I got this deal sold. So, and the profit, $10,000, of course. So.
Absolutely, and that's just a reason why, one of the reasons why I love probate. It's so funny over the years. I talked to so many wholesalers, and just what's taught out in the marketplace is you're lucky if you can do a $5,000 deal, or you're lucky if you can bird dog for somebody and find leads for them and make $1,000 or $2,000, and it just goes to show you, and my mentor, and I really learned this from my mentor, that, if you kind of just put your blinders on, really go after that, not pay attention, because if I listened to all the people who told me that I couldn't do big deals, I wouldn't be where I am. And, it just goes to show you, these are, Keliko's first 2 deals, and, 2 deals, $35,000. You can do the math. That's awesome. And so I just want to let you know, guys, that it's possible. And for those of you who finances are tight, you're maybe pressed with a marketing budget, you can see how if you just keep persevering, you close 2 deals and you have $35,000 in profit, much less all the wisdom that you learn along the way. Marketing then becomes a lot easier. You can start to scale and build and things like that. So Keliko, with this deal specifically, what would you say on this what did you learn the most from this deal? What was challenging? What did you learn from this deal, kind of looking back on it?
Well, this particular deal, I think, definitely, obviously the first deal, I would say the biggest thing I learned was dealing more so with the seller. But this one right here was more so on the buyer side. Obviously I already had a great relationship with Michael and the net worth guys. So really just understanding that, we got to work together, try to get them obviously to buy it at 75, knowing the foundation issues. They were just ramming it down my ear like, look, man, we gotta get real low here. So, but I mean, honestly, just this particular closing went like 10 times more smoother than the McAway one. So it was just more so of just hanging in tight with the buyer, and really that was it. This closing was very easy, much easier than my first one.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Yeah, and this one went the timetable. Obviously, we didn't have that 45-day wait period because of the specific seller situation, and so this one went a lot smoother, a lot faster.
Yeah.
But you learned that renegotiation. I mean, coming down $15,000, guys, is not necessarily the easiest thing. Sometimes, we can come down 5 or 10. We came down 15. Like Keliko said, we probably could have came down to 60. The renegotiation took place over Christmas and stuff. So again, another myth out there is you can't do deals in the wintertime. You can't do deals around the holidays. Well, this just goes to show you. I mean, we closed one just after the 1st of January. I think it was the first week or two in January, and then we closed that one in mid-December. So if you're wondering, like, man, can you do this around the holidays? Can you do this around Christmas? Can you do a deal over $5,000? Block those negative thoughts out of your mind and focus on the stuff we're talking about tonight, and you'll be so much further ahead. So I really want to reiterate that. So let's get into a couple final questions, Keliko, and then we'll kind of open up the chat to even more questions. So if you had to start your real estate journey over again today, what is one thing you do differently from when you first started, and why?
If I had to start over, and knowing what I do know, I would definitely take much bigger action, and the follow-up game, man. Just when I say action, I mean like literally, like if you don't have much money, okay, like I said, direct mail is very limited to its ability to get leads when you don't have a lot of money. I didn't have a lot of money. I was mailing out what I could, but at the end of the day, the phone is your best friend. Okay, the phone, the cold calling, because I mean, it doesn't cost you to call somebody. I mean, obviously, I guess if you got minutes and you can run your minutes down, but I mean, to me, it's just about the hustle, but the follow up and the phone calls, man, I would be like 10x in those things. If any of you are Grant Cardone followers, 10 times what you do, and just keep on the calls, because I promise you start off with that. I could have shortened my time exponentially had I just taken more action. And to me, that's just more action, but also more accountability to yourself. I mean, you obviously, I wish I could have held myself more accountable to push the system, getting the skill that I needed much quicker than I did. So that would pretty much be my thing, would be taking way more action, way more.
Awesome, man. I love that. What regrets do you have, if any?
That I didn't take as much action as I should have. I was lazy. That's what I regret. I mean, that's it, man. Like, it's as simple as that. The business, it's simple. It's not that complex to understand how to wholesale. It's effort, man. It's effort, and that's what I regret, is not taking the effort that was required sooner than I should have.
Awesome. So, I love it, man. I remember when we were talking, you're like, yeah, Steve, I did these 2 deals and I made X amount of offers. And I was like, man, we got to get you making more offers. So if people are wondering out there,
16 deals, 16 offers and 2 deals. I know the national average, they say, is like 30 per one. You make 30 offers, you get 1 deal. But for 16, I only made 16 offers and 2 deals, man. It's pretty awesome.
Absolutely, man. So I love that. I love that, and it just shows the potential in you too, man. It's just like, it's all about taking the action, making a bunch of offers, and just connecting with people is huge. What would you say would be advice that you have? Anybody out there, and it doesn't have to be with me, of course. This is not about me, but what would you say for anybody out there? What is having a mentor meant for you? What would you say to people out there who are like, maybe I can go at this on my own? What has that experience been like, and what would you say for those people who are looking for a mentor?
Well, as I stated earlier in this webinar, there's a difference between a mentor and a coach. A mentor, or let me just start, a coach is somebody who, you might get to talk to them once or twice a week for an hour, and, they just give you advice and just kind of say, here, go at it. But the thing of having a mentor, it's just, it's so much better, because to me, a mentor, as I said, is somebody that's going to sit down with you. It's somebody that's going to listen to you, have legitimate conversations, and actually help you solve problems in a very active standpoint. And, like I said, Steve, all the nights during these 7 months, the late nights, the early nights, doing our powwow sessions, which is where we kind of role play, and, he's the buyer, I'm me, or vice versa. And we're just running through things. And I mean, I can't even count how many times, for Steve, but for any mentor, honestly, if you find somebody that you feel like is a legit person, and they're going to be willing to sit down and actually like work with you, to be that type of person. Okay, hey, I need to work on these skills. Let's actually dedicate time. And I think at the end of the day, it's the amount of time, Steve, that you've invested into me that obviously got me where I am today. That's the thing, is mentors, you find a good one, they're going to be willing to put time in you, they're going to believe in you, and they're going to see the value in you, man. So that, obviously is my 2 cents on the mentor.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And I just, we were talking last week about this, and I actually shot a video on the YouTube channel. I'm going to be doing a lot more videos here very, very recently. And one of the things that we talked about is just the skill sets to learn, the skill set of negotiation, the skill set of marketing, the skill set of being likable, and so for those of you who haven't seen it, I just put it up. It's a YouTube video. It's like 16 minutes long, something like that, but I give you a couple book recommendations, different things you can do to work on those aspects. So I know me and you talked about that, Keliko, but if you want to touch on that just briefly, a couple of those key skills that you learned, or that you think would be beneficial for people, just kind of in their background, of things to pick up on and learn as they're going about, whether they're washing dishes or listening to something. What are some skills that you think would be beneficial for them to key in on?
Well, let me just start with this. If you haven't done your first deal yet, and if you're just somebody that's just sitting here thinking about wholesaling, this is something you might want to get into. The systems are one thing, okay? It's not extremely difficult to implement any system, but the most difficult thing, or the best thing you can have to get to the success is the skills, negotiation, talking and managing with sellers, building rapport. That's a skill. I mean, I spent months and months and months where I was so nervous to get on the phone. I didn't know really how to say. I didn't know how to handle objections in particular. And that's a skill set that takes repetition.
Yeah.
But the negotiation as well. I mean, those two things are what's going to drive. That's what's helping me succeed right now. And that's what's helping me, have this confidence, is having the skills. But see, the thing is, people think, oh yeah, I can start doing this, in a couple weeks or a couple months. And there are some people that can. Some people adapt these skills quickly. Some just get lucky in the situation. But it takes time. It's a process to get these skills. Like I mentioned before, me and Steve spent nights, day after day. I mean, like I said, I can't even count how many sessions we had where we were role playing, we were, discussing how to approach a situation, how to handle something, and that's all involved in building a skill. It's a process. You're not going to learn these skills overnight. You have to understand it's a process and believe in that process, and that, repetition is going to bring you those skill sets. And once you succeed with those skill sets, you're like, damn, I can do anything now. So yeah, like I said, speaking with sellers, negotiating, networking, that's also a skill. You got to be really good with networking with the buyers, building relationships, and ultimately, I feel like relationship building, negotiating, and managing deals is the three biggest skill sets that you need to take away from this. So.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I love that. So this is a question here for you, and I mean, we pretty much touched on this, but if anything else comes to mind here, if you had an aspiring new investor, entrepreneur, wholesaler sitting right in front of you there at Coleco in your office, what would you, and they can't seem to kind of get over that hump, or maybe they've been doing it a couple weeks and they're trying to get over that hump. What would you tell him or her to encourage them to keep getting through that? What would you tell them to do?
Well, I've actually done this already, Steve. So if he was in, I wish I would have recorded when I actually spoke with one of my buddies who's joining my team. We had a really deep conversation on that.
I love it.
I'm like, well, starting off, I'm just like, where do you see yourself in the next 5 years, next 2 years, next 3 years? How do you want to live life? And, understanding that there's a deeper cause, figuring out your deeper why of, are you here to do this for your family? Do you want to be able to put your kids into any school that they want? Do you want freedom? If I had somebody right now sitting in front of me, it would be consistency. If they're already in the business, if it's somebody that that's been working in it and they're just kind of like hitting a rut, I would continue to stress persistency and action. That's what it comes down to. People think that there's some complex formula to do this. It's not. It's just simple hard work and effort. That it's going to pay off. Like I said, it took me 7 months. There for a while, I thought I was going to go for a year or even longer, but it's just, you got to stick to it and believe. And then obviously hearing people such as myself, and, I'm the type that I used to listen before I got my first deal. I listened to other people talk about it, how long it took them, what happened, their testimonials, and it just motivated me. And it got me to believe it's going to happen at some point. It's just, you gotta be persistent. Persistency pays off at the end. It always does. There's never been a situation where it hasn't paid off. You only fail when you quit. Once you quit, and you did fail, but there's no such thing as failure until you have quit. You have speed bumps in the road, you learn from them, and you get better at them, but you truly have to figure out your why, and you have to always see your why in your vision. I literally write down my main big goals, the goals that excite me every single day. And I have a little notebook, and pretty much I keep them visions in my mind. And each and every day it just gets me like ready to go. It gets me, hey, dude, I'm going to make this happen. It's going to happen. Keeping that positivity around you. And, don't get away from the negativity. That's another thing as well. Obviously if it's family, if it's friends, it don't matter who it is, keep the positivity, keep the positive vibes, flowing, and just believe in yourself, believe in what you can do. I know Steve has some very particular daily affirmations, which I'm sure some of you have gotten, and, like I said, just believe in yourself, but persevere and understand that there is a reward on the other side of the mountain. But you got to keep doing it, man. If this is how you want to, be, if this is, you want the life of freedom, you want to live that amazing life, then this is, it's what you got to do. So.
Absolutely, that was well said, man. Surrounding yourself with positive people and just constant. I remember doing the same thing, just listening to rags to riches stories, just listening to other wholesalers who have made it, just constantly feeding my mind when I was at the gym, when I was doing dishes, just listening to the same ebooks over and over. That Preston Ely ebook that I sent out to you guys, I have the audio version. I need to find that somewhere, and that'd be a cool gift to send out to you guys. But I would just listen to that thing, stuff like that, just over and over, just like kind of ingraining in my mind that, hey, this is possible. I can do this. Is key. So without further ado, Keliko, man, I appreciate you so much for coming out let's kind of open up the questions here in the chat. Let's get the chat box rolling here at the end. And Keliko, if you guys have any questions specifically for Keliko, let's let Keliko answer a couple of questions.
Lay them out. Lay them out.
And then you can ask a few for me as well after that, and we'll get this thing wrapped up. You guys liking this content? Was this helpful? Did this the whole purpose of this again is to put this in a real life scenario and to inspire you guys, to inspire you guys. So was this helpful? What questions do you have? And fire away.
Steve, if you get them, I don't know if I can see them on mine.
All right, let's see. I'm getting a lot of feedback here. Very inspiring. Oh, good stuff. Great, great, great. Awesome.
I wish I could see this. I can't even see this.
I know, man. I'm still figuring out this whole GoToWebinar thing myself. So that's another thing. I said in the beginning, I can tend to be a perfectionist. You want to try to get things right. But I learned you just got to get moving with this stuff. So even now, there's tech stuff that I don't understand. And it's all about just, not being perfect, but just moving forward. So that's the biggest thing.
Hey, Steve, I got to tell you something, too. I've been waiting to tell you this.
Yeah, man.
You know how you preach about momentum?
Yeah.
I got 2 more deals under contract this week.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Yeah, man, that's what I'm talking about. That is what I'm talking about.
Yep, 20K coming. 20K.
That is what I'm talking about.
It's coming, Steve.
Keliko just quote unquote. We're gonna call Keliko a graduate student here. He's done his deals with me where we split those first couple deals, and he's on to rolling. So I'm here as kind of like a big brother. I'm here as a trusted advisor when he needs, bounce ideas off of. But he's just, it's amazing, 7 months, right? And then 25K, 10K, and then now you got these next deals.
Hey, everyone, 18 offers. We're keeping track of it. 18 offers, and I'm going to have 4 deals. 18 offers.
That's what I'm talking about. A lot of that, man, is your persistence, likability, relationships, like you mentioned. So, so the chat box is rolling here. Let's see here. I'm just going to go ahead and start reading off the questions to you, Keliko.
You're going to have to read them. I can't see them.
Okay. Keliko, how are you going to increase your marketing strategies with your new money?
Interesting. Yeah. Well, here's my predicament, okay? Me and my business partner, we've already kind of sat down for the year. We actually did it right before Christmas, and just kind of talked about our numbers, our goals. As far as my marketing increase, we can't, in a sense, I can't go all out in it because I have a lot of student loan debt from my college. We're kind of doing it, I think, if I'm correct, it's kind of like a 50%, 25 disbursement of our revenue in a sense where we're putting about 25% back into our marketing. One of my close partner, his name's Luis. He's taking 25, and then I'm taking 50 personally. So it's really it's a conservative 25% we're reinvesting back into our marketing, but we've already kind of purchased a few new opportunities with our marketing that we're pretty excited about, that we're going to give a shot. But yeah, right now, man, it's, I really wish I could put a lot more in there, but it's like, I gotta also be looking out for these loans coming up. I'm going to have to pay a lot of stuff.
Yeah, man, being a good steward is
a balancing act.
It is. Yeah. And you want to be a good steward, and that's the thing. When that money comes in, you got to be disciplined with it. So, and just for future reference, reinvesting 20 to 30% of what you make, which you said 25%. So that's a sweet spot. That's a great amount to keep growing and scaling your business. So keep doing that, and you're gonna be.
Eventually, we want to be at like 50%. Once I'm debt free, it's oh my God, it's game on, dude. Like we're probably gonna bump that up at least to 50, 65%, maybe even 70%. But
All right, let's see here. I'm scrolling through the chat box, man. We got a lot of questions rolling in here. Let me kind of start back up to the top here. Keliko, do you do just one county? This is asked by Spencer. Do you do one county or more than one county?
Currently, we're only in one county. At the beginning, when I started, I tried to do Cleveland. I live in Cleveland County, which is like 45 minutes, 50 minutes outside of Mecklenburg County, which is where Charlotte is. I'm only doing one county right now. To me, I'm all about time now. One of the biggest things I've learned is time is the most valuable commodity. So, I'm putting all of my efforts where the buyers are, which is in Charlotte. So I'm only currently focusing on one county. But I do have plans at some point. We do want to expand, but our goal is to take over Mecklenburg County first, and that be foremost. So that's where all my time's going.
Awesome. All right, we got Francisco asking, what programs do you guys use to get the phone numbers? And I take it he's asking phone numbers to executors or attorneys.
What program?
Yeah.
Can we clarify on that exactly?
Yes.
Program?
So Francisco, what programs? We basically, if it's not in the probate file, some counties are a little different. Sometimes they'll put the administrator or executor's phone number in the probate file. That's obviously best case scenario. If it's not in there, you can look it up on white pages, super pages. I think it's like $10 a month for peoplefinders.com and you'll get a decent amount of phone numbers. You'll have to dial through a few more. Sometimes it'll pull up with like 4 numbers, and unfortunately, you'll just have to dial through all 4 of them, but these leads are so hot, it makes sense to do that. And then another site that I just found out about, I believe it's called thatsthem.com. And one of my other students just told me about that site, and it's apparently very, very good. It gives you their Facebook account, all sorts of stuff, and it's free. So thatsthem.com is a really good one to look up phone numbers for personal representative. For executors, for attorneys, that's the easier one if it's not in the file. Again, most of the time it should be in the file.
Yeah, let me answer that too. I mean, every lead I've had up to this point, the number's in the file. If we don't have the number, if it's not in the file, I mean, we've just kind of stuck to our mail. I haven't taken any extra efforts as far as skip tracing, which is something we are going to start doing now.
Yeah.
I've actually found a good company that's we're going to work with that's they're very good at finding these information. But yeah, everything up to this point, man, it's been in the files. I haven't had to really go outside of the files to get the numbers or anything like that. So
awesome. All right, so Jermaine from Cleveland, Ohio is asking, Keliko, when signing your final deal at the title office, did the buyer act different when they found out how much money you were making on the deal, or did the buyer know prior to you signing?
Did they know if I was making any money? Is that?
Yeah, so for example, and this is a common question I get a lot, is basically how did the buyer respond when they find out, hey, crap, Keliko's making $25,000?
They didn't say a word. They didn't say anything about it.
Yeah.
Not one thing on both deals. They didn't even say nothing, man. I think at that point their mind was, they were looking at their side of the HUD and they seen their dollar amount, and at that point that's pretty much, that was all on their mind. And that's the thing. I'm gonna tell you, a lot of guru people, they're going to tell you if it's over 10 grand, don't do an assignment, do a double close. I mean, of course, yeah, you can do a double close, but that's just that's a pain in the butt. Most buyers would, obviously people would just prefer to do the simple assignment. But if you're good at positioning it with the seller, I have my ways of talking to the sellers and kind of putting myself in a position where I'm kind of with the buyer. I'm not against or my own person. It's kind of hard to explain. But yeah, man, I've not had an issue at all with that. Absolutely not. And at that point, that's why, when we get to the closing table, before we get there, we have if they're interested in seeing the seller side HUD, we only show them the seller side. We have 2 separate HUD documents.
Mm-hmm.
And that way, you know, that's not even a question. 'Cause, I mean, what are the odds if, you know, you're at the closing table, you're looking at 120 grand. As a seller, you're about to get that money. Your mind's already set on it. You're already thinking about what you're going to do with the money. I mean, it's like, you know, they don't really think about, oh, no, you know, we're at the table, oh, yeah, he's making 10 grand. No, sir, you know, we're not doing this deal. I mean, that's rarely happens, but I've not had any issues like that.
What about the buyer? And I think he might have been talking also about the buyer. And I know you have a relationship, and that really is the key part. But I get asked that question a lot too. Like, you know, Steve, if they find out, the buyer finds out you're assigning this deal to them for 20,000, it's a big deal. It's not a big deal as long as it's a win.
Not for me. Because I got the relationship, man. That's what it comes down to. They already knew. Let's see, my buyers already knew what I was making.
Yep.
And yep, it's all about, that's relationship, man. That's what I'm saying. If you invest time into finding buyers that truly, you know, that y'all have a real good understanding of each other. Y'all know they're going to do business together, and y'all can really get along. I mean, I was straight up with them. I told them exactly what I wanted, and I got what I wanted. So.
Yeah, as long as you have that relationship and it's a win-win, right? If it makes sense, if the rehabber, the landlord, whoever is going to make 30, 50, 80K, if they're a legitimate buyer and they're not just, you know, out to do a deal and just a shady individual, a shady person, they're not going to care. They're going to realize, hey, you know, Keliko knows what he's talking about. He's in it for the long-term relationship. Steve knows what he's talking about. And that's how you want to position it. And that's why when you approach this business from helping people and helping people with solutions and giving value, then it becomes less about the money and all these, you know, it's things that, you know, people ask me a lot, and it's something that I used to worry about. I'll be honest, in the beginning, it's like, oh, is this buyer going to run when they realize I'm making 20,000? And it's just never really been the case for me. Now Kaliko's doing a couple deals here.
If the numbers make sense, they're going to do the deal. It's all that matters. The numbers, I mean, just the numbers got to make sense, bro. It makes sense. If they're still making, it don't matter if I'm making $50,000 on a deal. I mean, if they're going to make their return and what they want, you know, they're going to do the deal.
Yeah.
9 times out of 10. I mean, I won't say that for every single buyer, but, you know, I mean, that's all what it comes down to. I mean,
absolutely. So we got Francisco saying, "Go Panthers." Tell Keliko.
Oh yeah. Okay, yeah.
Tell Keliko he motivated us to go hard. So that's awesome, man. We're getting some great feedback on here. Let's scroll to a couple other questions.
I'm glad.
What's your, let's see here, Keliko, trying to get some questions here for you. Guys, what other questions do you have for either myself or Keliko? Let's see, Rita asks, what was the most challenging when putting a deal together? For example, the seller side, the buyer side, getting to the closing table, the title company, or the lawyers? What was the most difficult?
Well, let me go ahead and knock one of those off. Attorneys, estate attorneys are not really even an issue at all. I don't even have to interact with them really, and you don't either. You know, the only time we had to deal with an estate attorney is if, oh, well, the seller, like for example, the first deal on McAway, she had her estate attorney overlook our contract and stuff, but that wasn't, that we didn't even have to deal with them or him. I mean, the most difficult thing? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I mean, like I said, honestly, it's a per deal basis. You know, the first deal, it was by far just the seller. You know, dealing with her. I mean, it'll vary each time from that perspective. The seller and getting to the closing table. And managing just everything, honestly, that first deal was chaotic. I mean, everything was difficult for me. But the second deal, I mean, the sellers were on point. I was on point, more importantly. That's what matters most, is that I was taking the initiative. I got everything that needed to be done. I was on top of the seller. I was on top of the buyer. I was on top of the closing attorney, the title company.
Yeah.
And when you stay on, sometimes, like I said, if you don't stay on top of it, you know, you're going to have these late bloomer things pop up, and it's going to stress you out, and you know, then you're going to start putting everybody into a panic. But honestly, you as the wholesaler, you're the transactioneer, or however you want to call it. You're the one calling the shots. You're the QB. Literally, like if you're on top of everything, everything else is going to run smooth and it'll handle itself. But if you're the type that just sits back and, hopefully rely on other people to do it for you, that's when you're going to have issues. And since you're the middle person, technically, you don't want to be in that situation. So.
Yeah. Awesome.
Else?
Did you market to, Jamel says, did you market to estates not knowing or not whether there was real property? So, sometimes
we did at first. We
Okay,
did at
awesome.
first, but I stopped doing that now at this stage. But we did do
Okay.
that. The reason I stopped doing that was, here's my thing, is over the last 3 to 4 months, my partner and I we're really big on data and statistics, so we're pretty much recording everything. We're recording conversion percentages. We're recording, how many particular leads that we found properties and that we didn't. Because we used to do that. I would go ahead and send a kind of like a blind mailer. I kind of took Steve's letter and edited it a little bit to kind of fit for different sets of probate leads, and it wasn't paying off, and I made the call. I'm just like, yeah, we're not going to keep doing those, and honestly, I don't regret doing that at all. So, we want to make sure if I'm going to market to a property, I want to know 110% that there's property there, and I'm going to put my money into that. And because that's another thing too, if you're going to do mailers and you're limited on funds, I would highly recommend that you don't try to get too big for your budget right now. Focus on properties that you know are there, and market to them, man. Like, I wouldn't try to do the other part, which you could. I mean, you could do that. It's just a matter of, do you want to spend that money doing that? So.
Yep. Nick is asking, do you still send a mailer after cold calling and getting a no, or do you just follow up with a call? So
here's my system, okay, and I know how Steve's like, this is how I tweak the system. When we get our leads fresh from the courthouse, the way I do it is I call first before I mail. Okay, I do this for a particular reason, to save money. Because if I call, like, say if I got 30 leads for one day at the courthouse, or like say it's a total of 50 leads for the week. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Out of those 50 leads I call, okay, if I can call these leads and I can get leads that say yes, we're interested, or absolute no's, and I can determine leads that, hey, I've got responses and I can at least get in contact with them over the phone. Well, my logic says, why should I spend the money on sending them a letter when I've already got their answer. I know if they're interested, I'm not going to mail them if I can just call them right back. So, if I'm cold calling first, I'm going to find all the leads that I can that, and get their answers on, if they're interested or not. But if they end up saying no, or they're like, oh, well, maybe we'll consider it, or if I just get a voicemail, there's a lot of them I have just voicemails, I'll go ahead and mail those. And, but the yeses, I tend not to mail at that point if they're interested in selling after the first call, just to try to save us a little bit as far as having to mail those. At the same time, it's, I think it's saving time as well. But yeah, that's, cold. If I can get in touch with them, I'm just calling them, even if they say no. Or, I'll send them a letter or something like that. But.
Awesome. So we got some of the questions still rolling in here.
Let's get them.
Let's rock. So let's see here. Keliko, what's your advice on managing both the seller and the buyer parties when you sign a contract, assignment contract to the end buyer? So basically, how do you follow up with the buyer and the seller side, once you sign the assignment contract there?
Well, pretty much once the assignment contract's signed, as far as the buyer, the seller doesn't even know about the assignment contract, so they're kind of void in that situation.
Right.
But as far as the assignment contract, you're really dealing with the buyer. I just have to make sure that the contracts, obviously, they get submitted to the title company. Once they're submitted, the paralegals, they'll start title, then they'll go ahead, and that's 3 to 5 day process. And, at that point, I'm just making sure that, the buyer is like, that they're also keyed in on the situation. I make sure that the attorney's office has their information and they have their information. So, when it comes time to get to the closing table, when they got bank info, wiring, all that type of stuff, just to make sure that they're moving smoothly. Because really once you do the assignment contract, I mean, it's just a matter of, okay, well, if there's a different closing date than we originally thought, like say if I went back to the seller and the seller's like, hey, we can't close on Tuesday, we're going to have to close on Friday, then obviously I got to go to the buyer and be like, hey, we can't close Tuesday, we're closing Friday. So, I mean, really, other than that, it's just really making sure that the buyer and the attorney's office or the closing attorneys or title company, whichever, is efficiently communicating and that they're on the same page. Because if they're on the same page, I already know I'm on the same page with the buyer. Yep. So that's really it with the assignment contract. And let me just, as far as the seller, I mean, just making sure you keep them updated. Okay, let them know when title's done. The very first deal, I kind of just sat back and I was like, yeah, Angela, I might have called her once or twice, in the month span, but with this, the last deal and these two deals I got coming up, like I'm on top of it. Pretty much letting them know I'm keeping them updated on when we got title back, keeping them updated on the closing, just pretty much just keeping them informed. I mean, it's good to call them, at least once a week at that point, once they've signed their contract. Maybe 2 times a week. Like I text a lot of my sellers. A lot of them like to text me, so
yeah.
I'll just text them and talk to them in that form. But yeah, I mean, it's just making sure we get to the table, man. So.
Yeah. All right. So Jeremiah asks, and Keliko, you can give, because you're a prime example of this, you can give your feedback on this. So Jeremiah is asking, after 25% out for taxes on a profit of $10,000 and deducting marketing, closing costs, a 50-50 deal split with Steve, not much is really left, right? So basically, it sounds like Jeremiah is wondering, is this really worth it type thing, and that's a good question. You want to, when you're thinking about this, it's like, man, different things. So, I certainly can chime in too, but, tell, your thoughts to Jeremiah there. So again, just to reiterate, because I know you can't see the questions, it says after 25% out for taxes on a profit of $10,000, deducting marketing, closing costs, 50-50, not much is really left, right? So what's your response to that, Keliko?
Well, as far as the tax thing, I haven't even dealt with that at this point. Your marketing depends on you, man. I mean, if you're sitting here wanting to depend on how much you want to put into marketing, I mean, but at the end of the day, like, it's worth it going with Steve from the essence that, like, you're going to get the skills, man. Like I said, you can't keep thinking about the money at first. I mean, you got to think of the skills. You got to think of the tools that are going to help you make more money, because, working with Steve and splitting the 50-50, I mean, that's a temporary ordeal, but at the end of the day, what you get more value out of that is the skills that are going to obviously help you implement for everything else in the future. So to me, like, that's a no-brainer. I would do it again if I was starting over, no question. The skills are worth more than 50% profit, bro. I'm telling you, like, the skills are worth millions and millions, and yet because they're gonna make me millions. I'm telling you, they're gonna make me a lot of money. All right, so to me, that's not even a question.
I appreciate that, Keliko, big time. And Jeremiah, too, just real quick, the closing costs, man, you don't have to worry about that. Your buyer's going to cover the closing costs.
Yeah, buyer pays all.
Marketing expenses, you may wonder, well, that's a lot of marketing. Well, any real business has marketing, right? You're going to do marketing for your business. Probate, compared to any other aspect of wholesaling, is one of the least marketing expenses. You're not... I'm not teaching you to go spend $1,000 a month on Facebook ads or Google AdWords. I'm not telling you to go pay $2,000 or $3,000 a month on postcard mailers. A lot of times you can, and I know Keliko did this. Your phone is free. Your phone is free. And my back was against the wall when I started. Kaliko's back was against the wall when he started. You don't have to have a lot of finances. So
that's all you need, bro. That's all you need right there.
Yeah.
Use your phone. Use your phone.
And so this is not a shameless pitch for me or anything like that. Regardless of who your mentor is, 50% of your first couple deals is better than not doing any deals. And just looking at Keliko, the transformation over the last, 7-8 months working with him from start to finish. I mean, it's life changing, those skills that you develop. So man, you got to find out if it's worth it for you. But I'm sure Keliko will tell you all day long he doesn't mind splitting that, first deal because he is one of my high level one-on-one mentoring students where I work with him on each and every lead. And this particular webinar is not a pitch for that. Actually, I'm working with more than enough students right now. I have very limited availability. But yeah, Jeremiah, man, it's just one of those things where you got to think about that bigger picture and say, okay, I can try to go at this alone, but I couldn't do it by myself. I failed for like a year and a half. I wasted thousands of dollars trying to jump from course to course to course. A lot of people I know could not do this alone. And even if it's not me, you want to find somebody that can be there for you and can guide you. So that's my 2 cents on that. I hope that really helps. But I appreciate you, Jeremiah, for asking that, because it's a real question that people have, and I want you to have that answer. Let's kind of go through the rest of these questions here, and then we'll get rolling. And first, I just want to say, guys, there's so many of you who, when this started 2.5 hours ago, are still here, and that just that takes dedication and commitment even of itself. So I want to just let you guys know.
Kudos to all of you. Kudos.
Yes,
Yes.
Keliko and I both appreciate you guys for coming out tonight. I mean, really, you could be doing other things with your family, with your friends, and this means a lot to me personally, and I just want to thank you for that. All right, guys, forgive me for looking goofy on the camera here. I'm trying to look through my questions.
You look good, Steve. Quit saying that, man. You look good. No, Steve look good, man. In his office. I know my office isn't very presentable, but it will be one day. So.
Amira says, Keliko, are the 2 deals that you have coming up from follow-up calls? Yep. Yes, ma'am. That's right. Follow-up is key.
Steve, one of them is Ashley, too. Remember the one we did with the old lady didn't get out? The old lady's gone now.
Oh, beautiful. I remember that lead, man. Absolutely. That was a good one, man. Sometimes it's a timing thing sometimes.
I know, dude. That's crazy. Yep, it's all follow-up. It's all follow-up. Yep.
All right, let's see. Nick is saying, have you worked with pre-probates at all? They don't have executors. That's a service through Probate Daily. Some counties are hard to get all of the probate information. Have you had any experience there in Charlotte with pre-probates, Keliko?
Nope.
Okay.
No, never even. Nope.
So
it's not in the state file. I'm not messing.
Yep. So Nick, in certain counties, pre-probates are still very, very valuable. You just find out about them extra early. You don't have as much information, but they're still very valuable to mail like crazy, because they're going to hear about you first. You're going to be ahead of the curve when they're actually going through that process. So definitely with what Tangi is telling you there with Probates Daily, I would definitely keep on that, because there's just a couple of cities like Philadelphia is one where there's limited probate information. So there's still people who crush it with pre-probates there, man. So don't let that discourage you at all. Let's see here. Guys, I think that's about it for the questions. Amira says, I thought estate attorneys were the ones who show up at the closing table with the executors. No, that's not the case. It's just typically going to be the seller showing up, your buyer. A lot of times you won't even have to be at the closing. I think, Keliko, your last deal, you didn't even go to the closing table, did you? You just sat at home and we were texting each other when the wire came in, right?
Yeah.
Like, you see 5,000 in your account? Oh, yeah, yep. Okay, cool. You see 10,000 in your account? Yep.
Yeah,
all right.
Yep.
So that's part of the fun too, guys. That closing day is always a fun day. I like to plan a nice lunch out or a dinner or something. I mean, that closing day is a fun day when you see that wire come in, especially for the first time. It's a beautiful thing.
Now, I sat at home. I was a little nervous at first. I was like, oh, what could go wrong today? But thank God nothing went wrong. Oh, it was beautiful though. But once that wire clears, man, oh my God, it's like, yes, sir.
Yeah. So Ann, how you doing? Ann is in Minnesota, and she's asking how to beat distractions. So And we'll take a couple final questions here, guys. It's going on 10:30, and I want to be respectful of your time. So, Keliko, do you have anything to say on how to beat distractions? And I can kind of field this one too. So, but go for it.
What kind of distractions? I mean, distractions from you, like being able to do your business, or I'm kind of
Yeah, and if you could just
distractions.
kindly elaborate a little bit, what specific
Like
distraction?
family, friends. I don't really know.
Karen, in the okay, family, friends, work, life.
Okay, well, I mean, personally, like, some everyone's different. I'm sure some people are gonna have harder issues, with spouses or family members telling you this and that. Oh, why are you doing this? You should just focus on your job, or if you don't have a job, you should go get a job. And just distractions along those lines. I mean, I think personally, I mean, I can't speak for everybody because I didn't really have that many distractions, honestly. So, I mean, I won't say that I'm personally able to answer whatever you might be or anybody else is going through. But just for me, if I had to say to do something, would just, make sure that you can find some you time, dedicate some time if you have to leave for yourself to just focus on doing your calls and just keeping the mindset like I think I mentioned before or earlier was writing your goals down. To me, it's a mindset. You keep your goals in your mind, just keep yourself focused. So when all these distractions might pop up, family, personal matters, if you're working a 9 to 5 still, just keep in your mind, what the end outcome is. You're always seeing that vision in your head, and to me, that will trump any of these distractions in the long run. So that would be my thing for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it is specific to each person. You're going to have different things creep up in different areas of your life, but a lot of it goes back to your why. A lot of it goes back to just finding whatever that, and start looking for it right now. Looking for that thing that's going to motivate you each day. What's a little routine that you can do, whether it's, flipping on YouTube and listening to some rags to riches stories, or if there's a motivational speaker, or whether it's listening to a sermon, or whatever it is, or if it's a certain music that pumps you up, or maybe it's going to the gym, or going, walking your dog, or, whatever it is, you got to find that thing. And sometimes it's when I, make my calls and when I'm doing, things in business, I like to make sure I'm kind of, in the flow of things. I like to make sure that I'm, and if I'm not feeling good, you gotta and that's why I'm really big into, trying to eat right, and health and fitness, because it's a whole perspective. If you're feeling awful, if you're constantly feeling run down and you have no energy, it's going to be difficult for you to stay motivated. It's going to be difficult. You're going to get distracted. So simply realizing that it's extremely important to eliminate distractions, eliminate negativity, blocking off a specific time that you're going to do your business, finding little ways to motivate yourself. Those things are so important, and it's like there's not a one-size-fits-all solution to that. But so hopefully that helps a little bit there, and but definitely just keep pushing forward and do your very best to consciously realize that, like, I need to focus, and how can I, again, when we talked about asking the right questions, okay, what are my distractions personally in my life, like kind of sitting down with a blank piece of paper, what's distracting me, or over the last couple of weeks when I've been, super productive, what does my day look like? What type of things allowed me to be productive? Or if you've been completely not productive and just fell off the wagon, that's okay. Sometimes we beat ourselves up, and I've been in that phase of my life and in business where just constantly beating myself up with the guilt trip, and that's not healthy either. So as hard as you work on this business, you have to work even harder on yourself in order to be successful. Otherwise, you're spinning your wheels. You're getting ahead with your effort, but then something in your thinking, something in your mindset, maybe it's a friend or a family member, or something that you're doing in your life is pulling you back. So whatever ground you make up over here in hard work, you're losing ground over here because your mind's not right. So it's that balance of constantly working on yourself that is key. You know, you have to be constantly growing, reading, learning, and that's what pushes you through to success. So
Yep, 100%.
so yeah, I just wanted to share that. Last question of the night here. Rita is asking, I would take this goes to Keliko. I'll let you answer this, Keliko. How many hours a day or a week have you been putting in to get these results? For example, do you work like 2 hours a day, 10 hours a day, 30 hours a week? Like ballpark, what's your, routine like, Keliko?
Ballpark, about 22, 23 hours a week.
That's awesome. Yeah, and
22, 23.
I agree. When you really get this thing rolling, I mean, it doesn't take more than 3, 4, 5 hours a day. In the very beginning, with the planning, with the mindset stuff, with the, all that, you might have to put in a little bit more, but
I spend more time with my partner. Like, as far as doing the business activities, the calling, the doing the letters, going to the courthouse, that might be, less than 10 hours. But a lot of my time goes into planning. It goes into strategizing. It goes into, going over our numbers as far as testing our marketing out and all that type of stuff. That's where I personally, with my partner, that's where I spend a lot of my time doing. And also going out networking and stuff. But yeah, that's pretty much it for me.
awesome. All right, guys. Well, it's 10:30 now, and we're gonna wrap up here. So, just on behalf of everyone, I want to thank you guys for coming out, spending time with us here. If there's anything particularly that we didn't address, you guys have my email. Just reply to one of the emails that you've received from me if you have any specific questions. That tracking sheet that I was talking about, if you guys need that, it's an Excel spreadsheet I put together. It's nothing fancy, but it's very powerful, and I challenge you to track your actions. Let's see, it's the end of January, right? It's the 28th today. If you track your productivity between now and May 1st, and you do your best to fill out that spreadsheet, I invite you to do that, and then send me a case, or not a case study, but just send me a video, an email, something, and be like, hey Steve, remember on that webinar back at the end of January, you told me to start tracking my actions on that spreadsheet? Well, I did, and this is what I've been able to do. And I bet you there's going to be more than one of you on this call tonight that you start doing that and you start getting amazing results. So if you want that Excel spreadsheet, go ahead and send me an email. I'll get that over to you guys. But thank you so much for coming out. I believe in you guys very much. You guys mean a lot to me. Thank you for spending time. If you've got a lot of value, please do me a favor and reply in an email. Just let me know what you liked. If there's something that just annoyed the crap out of you and you hated and you're like, Steve, this was awful, let me know that too, because I don't think I'm perfect. I don't think I know everything. And I want these webinars to be valuable for you guys, because it's not really, about me. It's not about Keliko. It's not about egos. It's about, lifting other people up and trying to help people along the way. So hopefully you guys got some value. Keliko, man, any final words? But I appreciate you, brother. Congrats. I did want to make just a quick statement here, dude, and edify you for a second, man. I'm insanely proud of you. Keep going. Keep pushing. The sky's the limit for you, man. There's no stopping you, and it's amazing to see how you've grown. So I just want to let you know, man, I believe in you, and you mean a lot to me, dude.
Hey, well, the same can be said for me. This man changed my life, man, and all the nights, and I told you this, Steve, over the phone, and I'll tell you, if any of you are thinking about going with Steve, 100% do it, man. I mean, he's going to sit down with you, but, most importantly, he's going to give you the skills that you need to make it in this business and make it big. And the skills, I can't stress enough. Those are way more important than the system. The system's important, but you got to have the skills, and Steve is an absolute master at helping you get those skills and negotiating and managing, working with the sellers, talking with them, man, just getting you through those humps. So, Steve, I appreciate you, man. I love you to death, and I know we're going to meet someday soon. So
yeah, man,
I'm excited about that.
We're gonna,
yeah, hey guys, hit up Steve, man. Hit him up. hit them up.
All right, guys. Well, you guys have a great night. Appreciate you guys, and we'll talk here soon. We'll be doing these more often, and appreciate it, guys.
Is it just me and you?
I think we're still recording here. Let me